Chapter 1. The world does not want people to live. Where's your man? To address the official, he's still sick in bed. When do you plan to pay your taxes? Please be assured, we will not miss the final deadline. In the darkness, Chun Sansi heard a conversation between a man and a woman. The man was aggressive, while the woman was pleading for leniency. Hiss! He struggled to open his eyelids, and what came into view was an entirely unfamiliar environment. Where is this? Wasn't I working overtime? Hiss! Chun Sansi's head suddenly throbbed with pain, as a tide of memories that didn't belong to him flooded his mind, forcing him to accept a fact. Have I transmigrated? This place was Payang County, a remote small county in the Dashing dynasty. The original inhabitant lived outside the county town in Yenbian village. He was a full-time, impoverished scholar whose family survived on his father's hunting, leading a barely acceptable life. Until half a year ago, after his father set off for the mountains at night, he never returned. With the loss of the family's pillar and the failure of the original inhabitant's child exam, the double blow led to a serious illness. That's when Chun Sansi transmigrated. Ah, brother Sure, you're awake. A woman, carrying a bowl of medicinal soup, entered the house. She was overjoyed to see the young man waking up. She hurried to the bedside, her already ill-fitting garment shaking violently as she ran, as if there were two rabbits tumbling inside. This woman was named Gu Xinlan. She was a child bride bought by the original inhabitant's father when he was very young. She had always taken care of the original inhabitant like an elder sister, staying loyal even after his father's death and through his illness. However, the original inhabitant seemed to have looked down on this sister quite a bit. Being the descendant of criminals, she was sent to the frontier and nearly sold to a brothel, making her the lowest of the low class. Considering himself far superior, the original inhabitant had believed he would one day pass the exams and marry a well-to-do woman, becoming a successful man. He thought she wasn't good enough for him and treated her like a servant on a regular basis. Brother Sure, how are you feeling? Gu Xinlan sat down by the bed and placed her hand on the young man's forehead, exclaiming with surprise, "The fever's gone?" Chun Sansi sat up and tried to move his body. Aside from some weakness, there was nothing seriously wrong with him, as the illness had disappeared with his transmigration. Truly the blessing of the gods. Gu Xinlan was visibly relieved. Brother Sure, you drink your medicine first. I'll go fix you some food. Watching her walk away, her tortoise-like hips ready to burst from her clothing, Chun Sansi spent 10 minutes digesting his current situation. Since I'm here, I might as well make the best of it. He'd always been quick to adapt to his environment. Since he'd come to this world, he needed to figure out how to live well. He picked up the bitter medicinal soup and drank it all at once, then went to the next room. He saw Gu Xinlan almost entirely inside the rice bin. Just her hips stuck out, as she struggled to scoop out some grain. After much effort, she managed to gather a small handful of millet. Since the death of the original inhabitant's father, the family had lost its source of income. Moreover, the original inhabitant's recent illness had completely depleted their savings, bringing them to the brink of utter destitution. Just now, was that the tax collector for the autumn taxes? Chun Sansi stood behind Sister Lan. How much do they want? 3 taels of silver, Gu Xinlan replied. 3 taels. Chun Sansi inhaled sharply. Are they including father in the count? Yes. Gu Xinlan nodded gently. The petty official said that since they hadn't found father's body, he couldn't be declared dead and his registration couldn't be cancelled. We still have to pay the full tax, including the hunting tax too. Chun Sansi cursed inwardly. The oppressive taxes of the Dashing dynasty were severe, and with frequent wars in recent years, the taxes had only increased. Brother Sure, don't worry. Worry was evident in Gu Xinlan's eyes, though she tried to reassure him. I've recently got some work at a tailor's shop and, along with doing laundry for people, we should be able to scrape together something. Clearly, the original inhabitant was completely financially dependent. Even after his father's death, He was reluctant to seek another livelihood and preferred to have Sister Lan work herself to the bone. Not even considering whether he was cut out for it, Chun Sansi felt rather speechless. He couldn't even pass the exam to become a scholar. Yet he was still dreaming of one day passing the imperial examination. Wasn't that the talk of a delusional person? He could no longer continue this way. He needed to find a means of making a living. Otherwise, if he couldn't pay the taxes, the men would be sent away for forced labor, and the women would be sold into brothels, a fate worse than death. I'll go cook rice. Gu Xinlan busied herself with the task. Before long, the meal was prepared. 2 bowls of a staple food made from a mixture of millet and chaff. Not even pickled vegetables were served. This was probably the last bit of grain in the house. Chun Sansi noticed that his bowl had a higher proportion of millet compared to Gu Xinlan's, which was mostly chaff. Chaff, which was the husk of grains such as rice, wheat, and soybeans, was rough and difficult to swallow. In the modern age, it was essentially used as livestock fodder. Eat, brother Sure. Gu Xinlan picked up her chopsticks and ate with small, deliberate bites, her fingers visibly red and swollen, the joints showing small sores. This was the result of washing too many clothes for others. As a woman, she did everything she could to provide for the family, short of the backbreaking labor only men could do. Chun Sansi saw this and remembered it. His head bent as he ate the hard-to-swallow chaff. Brother Sure. Midway through the meal, Gu Xinlan put down her chopsticks and hesitantly spoke. Actually, aside from the tax silver, we still owe Aunt Li 2 coins for medical expenses. Otherwise, I'm just suggesting if you could just recover a bit more, maybe you could also find some work to do? If we can't gather enough silver for the tax by the end of the month, I heard they'll take people away. As she spoke, she quietly watched his expression, her fingers anxiously picking at the corner of her clothes. Each time this matter was brought up before, Brother Sure would fly into a rage, saying things like how a scholar shouldn't engage in menial labor. Eat your food. Chun Sansi shoveled the food into his mouth, quietly pondering his finances. Gu Xinlan didn't dare to bring it up again. She quietly finished her meal, swiftly washed the pots and pans, and hurried off to her work as a female laborer. Chun Sansi remained seated, deeply considering his options. Ancient times were not like modern society, where mere physical strength could find you work. His family owned no land, and without any academic title from his studies, the only thing left to do was to hunt. As a child, he had learned a few tricks from his father, and although he had let his skills atrophy over the years, he still had the basic foundations. It shouldn't be hard to get started again. Moreover, since he had to pay hunting tax anyway, he might as well hunt. The house still had an old bow left. Chun Sansi went to the inner room and took down the longbow covered in dust from the wall. It should still be usable. But I have a bow with no arrows. I need to find a way to get some money to buy arrows. In order to survive, the household had sold nearly all of its books, leaving only the 4 treasures of the study, which the original owner valued as his life, as possibly the last things of some value. Without any hesitation, Chun Sansi packed up the writing brush, ink, paper, and inkstone and took them away. Even though they were all low-grade items, they sold for a total of 200 copper coins, roughly equivalent to 2 silver coins. Enough to show that poor scholars and rich warriors was not an absolute. Studying was also an expensive endeavor. With the money in hand, Chun Sansi went to the market stall that catered to hunters. Little Sure, you're here to buy arrows? The stall owner Uncle Su was from a military household and an old acquaintance of Sure's father. Are you preparing to hunt in the mountains instead of studying? Yes. I'm looking to buy a few old arrows. Chun Sansi picked out 5 second-hand willow leaf arrows from the stall. How much? 70 coins. Chun Sansi bargained. Uncle Su, old arrows aren't worth that much. 50 coins at most. All right, 50 coins it is. Old Yu was straightforward. I say you should have gone to the mountains a long time ago, learned a fair amount of your father's skills, at least enough to make ends meet. But instead, you insisted on reading useless books. Do you think a kid from a poor family like yours could become an official? Uncle speaks the truth. Chun Sansi didn't argue, and after making sure the arrows had no quality issues, he strung them on the bowstring and aimed at the ground to check. Suddenly, several lines of small characters appeared before his eyes. Skill, Archery, Entry Level. Progress, 20/100. Chapter 2, Raising a Family. Damn, really? Chen Sansi didn't react for a moment. Originally, even though he had a bow and arrow, he wasn't very confident about hitting the game. After all, hunting is a skill-based activity. If it was so easy, everyone would already be eating meat. But now, with the added capabilities, the situation was drastically different. What are you dazing for? Is there a problem with the arrow? Old Su waved his hand in front of the daydreaming youth. Chen Sansi snapped back to reality and quickly found an excuse. It's nothing. I just thought of my dad. Ah, your dad was a good man, what a pity. Mentioning his original father, Old Su also sighed incessantly. Chen Sansi didn't say more, paid the copper coin, took his things, and immediately left. He carried his bow and arrows, walking and stopping, heading straight to the foot of Tiger Head Mountain located about 10 miles away. The mountain was the nearest place in Payang County with game, and it was also the livelihood of many hunters. Chen Sansi had just recovered from a serious illness and had walked such a long way, so he was gasping for breath, sitting on a rock for quite a while before he recovered. He carefully examined the bow and arrows left by his father. From its construction, it was a typical recurve bow. The bow core was made of bamboo, the bow was made of willow wood, the bow was made of sturdy wood, and the bowstring was made of cow tendon with a pulling force of about 40 pounds, still categorized as a soft bow. Chen Sansi picked up the bow, and the panel from before re-emerged in his mind. Skill, Archery, Entry Level. Progress, 20/100. Utility, none. This time, undisturbed, he managed to calm down and understand the system's function. Simply put, it was about persistence. As long as he repeatedly and earnestly performed an action, he could gain progress, and upon completing the progress, he would certainly break through. In this way, as long as I practice hard, won't I have the chance to become the best divine archer in the entire Payang County? Chen Sansi's heart suddenly filled with hope, remembering the tips his father had taught him when he was young, and he slowly raised the bow and arrow. Is a 40-pound bow this heavy? He struggled to draw the bow to its full extent, almost gnashing his teeth to do so, and couldn't imagine what kind of people were mentioned in legends who could open a stone bow. Stand straight and steady. Exert even force. Grip the bow correctly. Mount the arrow calmly. Push forward and step back, and complete the bow-drawing pose. Muttering the formula in his heart, Chen Sansi stood up straight, drew the bow and mounted the arrow, facing a tree trunk about 40 meters away with the thickness of a hug, pushed the bow forward with his left palm, pulled the bowstring with 3 fingers of his right hand, slightly aimed the arrowhead downward, and then released the arrow. Swoosh! The arrow flew off, missing the target, and hit another tree. Chen Sansi was not discouraged, and immediately took another arrow from the arrow bag, aimed at the target, and shot another arrow. This time, the arrow went directly into the grass. Again, Chen Sansi shot 5 times in a row and finally hit the tree trunk. He carefully approached and pulled the arrows out of the tree trunk, repeating the previous actions. After several repetitions, he summarized the regularity for improving the archery progress. As long as he shot an arrow wholeheartedly, whether it hit the target or not, he could improve his proficiency. If he was not focused enough, it would not work. Moreover, hitting the target resulted in greater progress improvement. After shooting over 60 arrows, Chen Sansi began to feel cramps. His body was originally weak, and combined with malnutrition, being able to shoot so many times consecutively was already quite an accomplishment. Fortunately, with each arrow shot, his proficiency increased, and the more he shot, the more accurate he became, rarely missing at a distance of 20 steps. Skill, Archery, Entry Level. Progress, 70/100. Utility, none. The entry level was not far away, but Chen Sansi had hardly any energy left. After resting for a while, he began to wander in the woods with his bow and arrow, trying to see if he could hunt some meat to eat with the remaining energy. Unfortunately, this area was too close to the town, and the easy-to-catch game was basically all gone. He wandered until the evening before he found a few wild pigeons, but they were too far away to hit. In the past life, I always came back empty-handed from fishing, and now I'm empty-handed from hunting too? Fortunately, it wasn't completely in vain. Before leaving the mountains, Chun Sansi found a patch of wild shepherd's purse, quickly dug it up by hand, and stuffed it into his chest pocket before heading down the mountain. On his way, he went to the market and learned that the price of grain had gone up again. Due to consecutive poor harvests, the price of rice in Piyang County had soared to 100 copper coins per bushel, and the price of meat was even more outrageously expensive, with a pound of pork costing 17 copper coins. Add to that oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, firewood, charcoal, candles, and various excessive taxes. Chun Sansi couldn't imagine how many common people would not survive this winter. Estimating that the prices of grains would continue to rise, he decided to spend all the remaining copper coins on buying rice and mixed grains, along with a few salted duck eggs. 1 bushel of rice, half a bushel of mixed grains, in total is only enough to feed 2 people for 3 to 5 days. If I exchanged it all for sorghum mixed with bran, it might last a few more days. But Chun Sansi had no choice. Since he was going to become a hunter in the future, he absolutely couldn't continue eating nutritionless bran. He needed to ensure he had enough physical strength at all times. Otherwise, if he encountered any danger in the mountains, he wouldn't even have the energy to run. He was already starving, and after getting the grains, he hastened his steps, eager to get home and start cooking. "Yo, little stone!" Just as he was about to reach his doorstep, someone suddenly called his name from behind. Chun Sansi turned around, and a tall, burly man appeared in front of him. Qin Xiong, a well-known bully in the town, he had a group of thugs under him and made money by charging high-interest loans and trafficking virtuous women. Many impoverished people in the town had been ruined by him. "Wow! Bow and arrow?" Qin Xiong eyed the bow and arrows behind Chun Sansi with surprise mixed with mockery. "This scholar also plans to learn to hunt in the mountains? Driven by necessity." Chun Sansi stepped back half a step and said, "Brother Qin, did you want to see me for something?" Qin Xiong hooked the corner of his mouth. "How have you considered the matter from last time?" Last time? A sudden dread struck Chun Sansi's heart, and unpleasant memories flooded his mind. Half a year ago, after his father had passed away, the household had become extremely strapped for cash. It just so happened that Qin Xiong came knocking, and the former owner had thought about selling Gu Xinlan for money. If it were him, naturally, he would never do such a thing. "Brother Qin." Chun Sansi refused. "I've thought it over, I won't be needing your money." Upon hearing this, Qin Xiong's face immediately darkened. "Are you sure you've thought it through?" "I really don't need it, Brother Qin." Chun Sansi held his sack of grain tightly and took a detour on his way home, feeling somewhat uneasy. In his memory, Qin Xiong was not someone who would easily let things go, and he feared this matter was far from over. Truly, good fortunes never come in pairs, and misfortunes never come singly. He hadn't even sorted out his meals, and now a bully had targeted him. Chun Sansi touched the arrow bag at his waist. A bow and 5 arrows were his greatest reassurance living at the bottom of this chaotic world. He didn't know what changes would follow after progressing past the entry level of the system. "I need to fill my stomach first to have the energy to practice archery." Chun Sansi pushed open his home's door, only to find Sister Lan had not yet returned. Every day, she was busy laboring, sewing in the tailor shop in the morning and washing clothes for the wealthy families in the afternoon. He took the initiative to chop wood and start a fire, preparing the meal in advance. Plain rice served with salted duck eggs, and a soup of boiled wild greens. For many households, this was already a decent meal. When Gu Xinlan returned home after her busy day, for the first time ever, she was surprised by the steaming ready-made meal. "Brother Sure, where did the white rice and salted duck eggs come from at home?" "Eat." Chun Sansi beckoned her to sit down, then grabbed the chopsticks and wolfed down the food. He had been starving. "Brother Sure." Chun Sansi had his head down eating away, when he finally noticed that Gu Xinlan hadn't touched her chopsticks. Her eyes had reddened unknowingly, and tears trembled on her lashes as she choked up and said, "Can you not sell me?" "Ah." Chun Sansi was stunned and a bit confused. "I heard people say that you made a deal with that Qin Xiong today." Gu Xinlan's voice trembled. Otherwise, where would the silver to buy white rice and even salted duck eggs come from? She frantically pulled out a patched-up purse from her waist, poured out a few copper coins, and pleaded, "Brother Sure, I was wrong. I won't urge you to work anymore. Just stay at home and study. I can earn money. I can pay the taxes. Please don't sell me." Everyone in Payang County knew of Qin Xiong's reputation. Landing in his hands, she was likely to be sold to a brothel. The reason Gu Xinlan had faithfully stayed with the Chun family all these years was precisely because Chun Sansi's father had bought her from a trafficker, preventing her from becoming a prostitute, and thus she remained grateful. Was she really unable to escape this miserable fate in the end? "Sister Lan, you're overthinking it." Chun Sansi understood, guessing that someone had been spreading rumors. He comforted her. "You are a member of the Chen family. How could I possibly sell you?" Having someone around who was as intimate as a sister was incredibly valuable to someone new like himself. He would never push her away, or else wouldn't that be terribly disgraceful? Gu Xinlan didn't make a sound. She just sat there sobbing, obviously not convinced. Chun Sansi was helpless. He grabbed her swollen hand and led her into the inner room. "The food was bought with the money from selling my books, not from Qin Xiong." Gu Xinlan saw the empty book desk and a bow and arrow hanging on the wall, and was stunned. "Brother Sure, you sold all the scholars 4 jewels for a bow and arrows?" "Yes." Chun Sansi patiently explained. "From now on, I plan to follow father's footsteps, hunting to support the family. How can I let a woman like you suffer so much? Your hands are even chapped." To support the family. Gu Xinlan never thought she would hear Brother Sure say these words. She realized her decaying hand was still being held by him. Feeling somewhat inferior, she tried to pull it back, but instead was embraced tightly. "Rest assured." Chun Sansi, seeing her severe insecurity, spoke solemnly. "Father once said, you were to be my wife. Why would I send my wife away?" Gu Xinlan was startled by the sudden embrace. Feeling the warmth, she looked up incredulously at him. "Brother Sure, you don't mind that I am of low status?" "I don't mind," Chun Sansi affirmed. "I can't like you enough. Brother Sure, you are all the family I have left in this world. Don't deceive me." Gu Xinlan no longer tried to escape, but after a few tests, finally rested her cheek against his chest, feeling this rare warmth. "Sister Lan, what is it?" "I feel a bit sore today. Let's go to bed. Can you give me a massage?" "All right." "Ah, Brother Sure, wasn't it a massage?" "I'll massage you." MMM. Chapter 3 Entry-Level Archery. The next day, the rooster crowed at dawn, and the morning fog was thinning. Chun Sansi woke up early, with warm jade hot in his embrace. With cheeks pink like peaches, Gu Xinlan was still deep asleep, clinging tightly to his arm, almost leaving marks. In feudal society, a helpless woman could easily be reduced to a plaything and trafficked. Hence a lack of security was understandable. Chun Sansi struggled to free his arm. Having taken advantage of her, he must now take responsibility. Thinking back, despite Gu Xinlan's frail appearance, she was like a delicate branch bearing heavy fruit. He couldn't fathom why his former self had failed to cherish her. In his previous life, she wouldn't be his to marry without at least 2 million. Chun Sansi tiptoed out of bed and grabbed the bow and arrows from the wall before heading outside. "Who?" He took several deep breaths to calm his cluttered thoughts and aimed at a crooked willow tree to start practicing archery with focus. After resting for half the night, his spirits and chi power were almost fully restored, and his aim was quite impressive as well. Within 20 steps, he could nearly hit the target with every shot. To minimize wear and tear, he practiced with only 1 arrow, yet even so, it was severely worn by the end of the morning. Inside the house, Gu Xinlan peeped through the paper-covered window at Chun Sansi, drenched in sweat, and inexplicably felt relieved. Brother Shi is serious. He really plans to hunt and make a life with me. She soon felt sorry for him. He was up all night, and now he's up early practicing archery. What if he exhausts himself? Gu Xinlan leaned against the wall and limped to start the fire and cook. Got it. Another arrow was shot, and Chun Sansi took a long breath. Skill, archery, entry-level. Progress, 0/200. Utility, use a 6-power bow, no miss within 40 steps. Just moments ago, it felt as though some power was infused into his body, not only significantly enhancing his physical strength but also elevating his archery skills to another level. Archery entry-level. Chun Sansi observed the changes on the panel. 6-power bow, no miss within 40 steps. In the Dashing Dynasty, 1 power equals 12 jin, a unit of weight. So a 6-power bow equals 72 jin. As far as he knew, the city guards also used 6-power bows. This meant he had now reached the standard of an ordinary archer. You see, in ancient armies, soldiers who qualified as archers were considered elite. The latter sentence, no miss within 40 steps. A step in the Dashing Dynasty meant moving both feet once, about 1.4 meters, so 40 steps were slightly over 50 meters. Don't underestimate this distance. The effective range for an ordinary archer in battle was about 100 steps, but that was for shooting volleys into the air, not precision targeting. Normally, precision for a distance of 40 to 50 steps was also required for assessments. The archery competitions Chun Sansi had seen in his previous life usually had targets about 70 meters away, and those were with modern bows. And he achieved no miss within 40 steps, every arrow hitting the bullseye, which doesn't mean he couldn't hit targets at 70 meters. It just meant he couldn't guarantee a bullseye every time. Overall, based on the panel's display, he was nearly qualified to be assessed as an archer. Chun Sansi couldn't wait to try it out. He drew the bow again, his movements as proficient as a seasoned archer's. The 4-force bow that felt quite heavy an hour ago now seemed incredibly light when fully drawn, almost effortless. After advancing in archery, his physical strength had also greatly improved. He calmed his emotions and tried shooting a few arrows. Indeed, his accuracy doubled. He hit every target within 40 steps, and even those over 60 steps away were not bad. Good. With this level of skill, he could definitely hit game animals. The most crucial point was this was just the beginning. Chun Sansi dared not imagine what it would be like if his archery skills reached small achievement or great success. Brother Shi, dinner is ready. A soft, bone-melting voice came from inside the house. Chun Sansi then put away his bow. He saw that although only one night had passed, Sister Lan had changed dramatically, exuding an indescribable charm along with her almond eyes, drawing extra attention. At the dining table, there were 2 bowls of rice. One bowl contained rice with steamed buns. The other held half a bowl of thin porridge. The grain bought with a single silver coin couldn't last more than a few days, and clearly, Gu Xinlan was still reluctant to eat her fill. Chun Sansi wasn't fussy either. His archery practice consumed a lot of energy, and he needed even more since he was about to head up the mountain. After giving Sister Lan half a steamed bun, he ate everything else left. Full and content, he slung his bow over his shoulder and stepped outside. Be careful, Brother Shi. Even if you don't catch anything, don't go too deep. Just gather some wild vegetables and firewood to bring back. Gu Xinlan did not believe that her man could catch any game just after beginning to practice archery. Safety always came first. As long as they could overcome the current hardship together, she was willing to work herself to the bone even if Brother Shi wanted to leave his job to study in the future. When Chun Sansi left his house, the day was already bright. The neighbors were all starting their busy day. Many looked on in curiosity at the sight of him carrying a bow and arrows. Oh, is Brother Shi preparing to go hunting up the mountain? Can he do it? Look, I told you early on, he can't make sense of books. Go to hell, Li Zi, at least he knows how to hunt. What can you do? Little Shi, do you need Uncle Zhao to accompany you for a couple of days? Be careful. Your family is depending on you. The villagers had their fair share of snide remarks, but thanks to his father's good reputation, the majority were warm-hearted. Chun Sansi greeted everyone he met, quickening his pace toward Tiger Head Mountain. After mastering entry-level archery, his strength had increased, and he could now draw a 6-power bow, which significantly improved his physical condition. What previously took 2 hours to reach the foot of Tiger Head Mountain now took him less than an hour and a half. Following the winding path carved out by earlier travelers, Chun Sansi arrived at the midsection of the mountain, searching for signs of game. Yet, after wandering around for quite a while, apart from some insects and sparrows, he discovered nothing. Normally, a qualified hunter would need the aid of tools like hunting dogs and animal traps, but he was too poor to afford anything beyond a bow. No, he had to succeed. Otherwise, the modest amount of food at home would quickly run out. Chun Sansi closed his eyes, trying hard to recall the extensive lessons from his father's youth. For instance, determining what kind of game could be nearby based on the feces, what kinds of environments certain animals preferred, the habits of various animals, and also how to walk through the jungle without alarming the prey and so on. Tracking and stealth. Uninitiated. Progress. 3 out of 100. Utility. None. Looking at the rows of text that suddenly appeared, Chun Sansi was somewhat baffled. Is this possible? Could it be that, as long as it's a technical task, I can manage it? Alright. It's time I earn my living by hunting. Curbing the joy of discovering he had more than one skill, he began to search for tracks more meticulously. This search lasted almost half a day. By the time Chun Sansi sat down to rest, his proficiency had also progressed. Tracking and stealth. Beginner. Progress. 0/200. Utility. Keen observation. Light steps. Chun Sansi's senses sharpened significantly. He could easily pinpoint the exact direction of birds' calls in the forest, effortlessly observe the subtle movements of small insects and ants on the ground, feeling as if everything was within his grasp. He got up and resumed his search, and soon near a bush, he spotted some animal droppings. Round and black, the size of beans. There were also oval footprints in the loose soil nearby. A wild rabbit. The droppings are fresh. It must be nearby. Following the trail, Chun Sansi moved forward. Under the effect of tracking and stealth, he made almost no sound. He entered a wooded area and then saw in the distance a plump gray rabbit, focused on gnawing at the grass, completely unaware of any danger. What a fat rabbit! Chun Sansi's eyes turned sharp as he drew his recurve bow, his 3 fingers firmly gripping the bowstring, ready as a hungry wolf poised to strike. Whoosh! The sound of the arrow ripping through the air was heard. Within 40 steps, his arrow did not miss. In a blink, the arrow pierced straight through the rabbit. He had hit it. His first successful hunt in life. Chapter 4 Tax Collection. Chun Sansi excitedly ran over, picked up the rabbit from the ground, and weighed it a few times, estimating it to be around 7 or 8 jeans in weight. Based on the current market price, this could sell for at least 60 copper coins. He wasn't in a rush to descend the mountain. Instead, he securely bound the rabbit with a rope and hung it on his body, continuing to search for new prey. Goo goo. Nearby, the calls of birds continued unabated. With the help of tracking and hiding, Chun Sansi quickly located 2 pigeons perched far away on tree branches. He knocked the arrow, drew the bow, pulled the string, and released the arrow. A sequence of movements as fluid as flowing water. A blurred shadow flashed by, and the 2 pigeons were shot through in a string, falling from the tree with a plop to the ground. Chun Sansi smoothly pocketed the pigeons. Pigeons, being highly nutritious, were priced slightly above rabbits. The 2 combined were worth 30 copper coins. He wanted to continue, but unfortunately, it was getting dark, and he could only pack up and head down the mountain. Selling game required going to the restaurants in the county town. Along the way, he would pass through many villages even poorer than Yenbian village, where each villager's face was gaunt and yellowed, and some lay motionless on the ground, leaving him to wonder if they were dead or alive. When they saw the game in Chun Sansi's hands, they all cast envious and greedy glances, but upon spotting the bow and arrows on his back, they could only forcefully suppress their sinister thoughts. 8 Treasures Restaurant. An hour later, Chun Sansi stood before the towering gold-plated signboard of the restaurant, pausing in his steps. This was the restaurant where his father used to sell his game. It was one of the top restaurants in the city, where a casual meal supposedly cost at least 3 to 5 taels of silver. Just now, by the roadside, there were people nearly starving to death. Yet now he personally witnessed a rich man carelessly discarding a full plate of fresh food on the ground to feed to dogs. This is truly wealthy homes reek of meat and wine, while bodies freeze to death on the roadside. A poor harvest of crops? If all the grain in the granaries were taken out, it might well be enough to feed the whole town through the winter. Chun Sansi felt emotionally moved. The shopkeeper who came out to greet him at the restaurant was an acquaintance of his father. 8 jin and 2 liang of rabbit meat, and a pigeon weighing half a jin, a total of 85 won, said the slightly portly middle-aged man, dexterously maneuvering the beads on his abacus. Does that seem fair to you? Fair enough, thank you, Uncle Lu, replied Chun Sansi, who knew the going rates. Lu Hongda smiled and said, if you have good merchandise in the future, just bring it here, and I guarantee you won't be shortchanged a single penny. Chun Sansi took the copper coins. To earn nearly a chen of silver in one day is definitely enough for living expenses in normal times. But now with taxes due soon and debts to be paid, this amount is simply not enough. I must hunt larger game. As he was counting the copper coins, a skinny, dark-skinned youth came over to sell fish. Brother Sure. The youth recognized him at a glance. The corresponding name also quickly surfaced in Chun Sansi's mind. Zhang Shun, Aunt Li's child, with whom he had once bare-bottomedly played in the mud during childhood. If it hadn't been for Aunt Li taking Sister Lan to work, occasionally bestowing a little help, they probably would have starved to death by now. Shun, you've come at just the right time, said Chun Sansi, pulling out the still warm copper coins. The money I owe your family. Before he could finish, Shun interrupted him. Brother Sure, don't worry. I'm not in urgent need of money right now, said Zhang Shun while lifting the fish basket at his feet, showing the full catch within, which even included a large fish weighing 7 or 8 jins. It's you who have just recovered from illness and need money more. Pay me back when you are in a better financial position. All right, thank you, Shun. Chun Sansi did not refuse further. He owed the family 2 chen of silver. 1 chen was not enough. He might as well wait until he could repay it all at once, both principal and interest. Bro, don't mention it. You are the one who taught me how to read when we were kids. Since both lived in Payang County, they naturally went back home together. During their conversational walk, he learned that Shun's family had saved up more than 10 taels of silver and was planning to join a martial arts hall to learn martial arts soon. Martial arts, mused Chun Sansi, well aware that in this world, those able to practice martial arts held exceptional status. For a common family's child to enter a martial arts hall was to make something of oneself, and achieving even small successes would bring glory to the ancestors. With a progress panel on him that tracked his martial arts learning, he naturally wanted to practice martial arts as well. However, the tuition fees were hefty, and he first needed to get past the current difficulties and save enough silver. Upon reaching the town, Chun Sansi and Shun parted ways. He had not even reached home when he saw a graceful figure anxiously looking out at the doorway from afar. It was Gu Xinlan, of course. She had deliberately finished work early and gone home to cook, waiting for the man to return. As dusk approached and he was still nowhere in sight, she nearly panicked to the point of heading up the mountain to look for him. Brother Sure. Gu Xinlan hurried over, half concerned, half reproaching as she said, It's already dark and you just got back. Are you trying to scare me to death? Haven't I told you it doesn't matter if you can't catch anything? Chun Sansi didn't rush to speak, but cheerfully pulled out a gray pigeon from behind his back. Ah! Did Brother Sure catch something? Before Gu Xinlan could recover, a bag of copper coins was thrust into her hands, and a gentle voice simultaneously sounded in her ear. Tonight, we eat meat. Half an hour later. On the dining table, besides the salted duck egg with rice, there was also a pot of fragrant pigeon soup. Ever since Xianlan's father passed away, their family hadn't had meat for half a year. Brother Shi, you're truly amazing. Gu Xinlan still couldn't quite believe it. I heard even Uncle Zhao from the village returned empty-handed today. I just got lucky. Uncle Zhao and the others are old hands at Second Layer Mountain. They always bring back big catches. Chun Sansi gnawed on a pigeon leg, relishing the salted duck egg mixed with rice, feeling immense satisfaction in his stomach. He purposefully didn't sell everything for silver, just so he and Sister Lan could nourish themselves. But Gu Xinlan still refrained from eating the meat. After Chun Sansi urged her again and again, she finally ate a pigeon wing. After a satisfying meal, he sat on the edge of the bed, pulling Sister Lan to sit beside him. She lowered her head, her face flushed, fingers nervously intertwined. Today marked their first day of marriage. Under the flickering candlelight, Chun Sansi took his time to carefully observe Sister Lan's pretty face for the first time. Her fine arched eyebrows were charming, apricot eyes reflecting the candlelight as if autumn waters mirrored the moon. Her slightly flushed cheeks resembled peach blossoms. She radiated an irresistible charm all over. And on top of that, she could read and was skilled in embroidery. If it weren't for the coarse hemp clothes she wore, she would be a perfect young lady from a reputable family. Sister Lan. Chun Sansi unconsciously drew closer. What's wrong, Brother Shi? You smell so good. Brother Shi, I still hurt. Late at night. Chun Sansi leaned against the bed head, his arm still being tightly clung to. Brother Shi. Gu Xinlan looked worried. Did we offend that Qin Xiong? Qin Xiong. MHM. Gu Xinlan nodded. I heard from the neighbors that Mr. Qin had been lingering at our doorstep for quite a while during the day. Chun Sansi took note. It seems that fellow really isn't willing to let things go. I'll have to be more cautious in the future. He comforted her. Go to sleep, Sister Lan. I'm here. MHM. Gu Xinlan was already exhausted and quickly fell asleep. These last few days, she somehow felt at ease. Chun Sansi leaned against the bed head and noticed a leftover old book at the bedside that hadn't been sold. So he picked it up and flipped through it. Skill. Reading, entry level. Progress. 15/300. Utility. Spirit refreshed, photographic memory. Not bad at all. While hunting during the day when he realized the skill tracking, he wondered, could reading work too? Turned out he wasn't wrong. Not only that, but he had reached entry level right away. Looking at how the original body had accumulated knowledge, how come he never managed to become a scholar? Holding the book in hand, Chun Sansi estimated that if he were to take the civil service exam, he would surely pass. Unfortunately, the next exam wasn't for another 2 years. Too long to wait. First, he needed to survive. After browsing the book for a while, Chun Sansi also fell into a deep sleep. Thud, thud, thud. Open up. Open the door quickly. The next morning, Chun Sansi was awakened by the urgent knocking. He told Sister Lan to dress and hide in the inner room. Then he got up to open the door. Chapter 5 Persecution. Outside the door were 2 officials. One was holding a register, and the other wielded a long whip. Tax collectors. Without thinking, everyone knew what they had come for. Chan San, with all due politeness, said, Sirs, please give me just half a month more, and I will have the taxes ready. According to the regulations of previous years, the deadline for tax payment was still about 20 days away. He strived hard. Gathering 3 liang of silver should not be difficult. However, the tax collector sneered. Considering the barbarians from the north constantly harassing us and the thieves from the south causing trouble, the great Qing dynasty needs your grateful contributions now. How can we wait that long? Chun Sansi inquired. Then, sir, how long do I have? 7 days. The tax collector held up 3 fingers. Within 7 days, anyone who fails to pay their taxes will be sent to Huzhou to work on the canal. With that, the 2 clerks turned around and left, knocking on the next house's door. which had also not yet paid its taxes, like heralds of doom. If they encountered any resistance, they would administer a couple of lashes. Why has the tax collection been advanced by so much? It must be related to the war and turmoil. Chun Sansi's Yanbian village in Payang County was situated right on the northern frontier of the Great Shang dynasty. Northwards were the garrisons and the Great Wall, beyond which lay the barbarian tribes. In recent 10 years, the frequency of barbarian raids had increased. There had even been instances of small groups of barbarian cavalry breaking into the territory, plundering an entire village before making a brazen escape. It was only 3 years ago that the court sent a new elite military force to maintain control, stabilizing the situation, but the minor conflicts near the Great Wall never ceased. Not just the north, the south was also restless. Chun Sansi, although not well informed, was aware of the constant uprisings in the south. Although they were quickly suppressed each time, there was always someone new to take up the cause. 7 days. What's the use of hurrying us like this? Can common folk just conjure up silver and food out of thin air? As someone with basic historical knowledge from the modern era, he knew that the dynasty was in its twilight years and chaotic times were approaching, making life increasingly difficult for the common people. Brother Sure, what's going on? Inside the house, Gu Xinlan asked with concern. It's nothing. Chun Sansi didn't want others to worry unnecessarily. He pretended as if nothing had happened and, like usual, finished his archery practice, ate breakfast, then took his dry food and bow and left the house. Since he had found himself at the bottom rung in these chaotic times, he could only try to survive by playing by the rules. Gathering 3 liang of silver in 7 days was no easy task. Chun Sansi was under considerable pressure. It wasn't just him. The fellow villagers were all in distress. As he was about to leave the village, he saw a few familiar figures and frowned, attempting to avoid them. Little Stone, Qin Xiong, leading 2 ruffians, moved purposefully towards him. Why are you avoiding me? Chun Sansi could guess that the other party was planning to take advantage of the situation. He bluntly stated, Brother Qin, if this is about what happened last time, there's no need to discuss it further. Have you forgotten the tax collector's words? If we can't gather enough silver, we'll be sent to work on the canal. Qin Xiong put on a facade of kindness, feigning sympathy. Whoever ends up with that job, there's no record of anyone returning alive. Brother, take a loss here. Give me that young woman you're hiding at home, and I'll handle your taxes for you. How about that? If I really get taken to work on the canal, I'll accept my bad luck. No need for Brother Qin's concern. Chun Sansi said expressionlessly and started to walk away. Having learned the basics of archery, he relied on his physical strength considerably more when he spoke. However, it wasn't necessary to escalate conflicts just yet. Firstly, Qin Xiong had a group of ruffians at his command. Secondly, this scoundrel had a brother who practiced martial arts, purportedly very formidable, not someone to provoke lightly. Qin Xiong didn't stop him, just watched coldly as he walked away. Big brother, if you ask me, just rob him directly. Why bother with the silver? One of the ruffians complained loudly. Idiot! Qin Xiong smacked the ruffian on the forehead. Do you think the Great Shang dynasty has no laws at all? Abducting peasant girls used to occur frequently, but since the new Liangzhou governor took office, no one dared to commit such acts again. What should we do now? The rogue asked. Isn't Big Brother still waiting to use that woman to give Brother a gift? What's the rush? Does he really think he can gather 3 taels of silver that quickly? Qin Xiong sneered disdainfully. By then, he'll be taken to work on the canal and won't have to spend a penny. 3 taels of silver within 7 days. It seems I must indeed hunt some big game. Once the tax matter is resolved, we'll find a way to deal with that Qin fellow. After arriving at Tiger Head Mountain, Chun Sansi noted it was still early. Many large animals only appeared at sunset, so he wasn't in a hurry and found a clearing to practice archery. When he practiced archery, he felt effortless and rather adept. Not to mention 100% accuracy within 40 steps, he also achieved over 80% of bullseyes within 50 steps. only it used up a lot of arrows. Crack! Another arrow hit the bullseye, but the arrow broke upon impact. Chun Sansi felt quite distressed. A new arrow would cost at least 10 won. However, arrows are consumables, and since all he had were used ones, wear and tear were normal. Skill: Archery, Entry Level. Progress: 128/200. Utility: Draw 6 power bow. No misses within 40 steps. A panel appeared. If I push hard tomorrow, I should be able to advance to the next stage. Chun Sansi ate some dry food to fill his stomach, then got back to work. With his sharp senses, he missed no trace. Soon after, he found a rabbit near some bushes through its droppings. Without a doubt, one arrow pierced it through and he bagged it. Isn't there any larger game? Chun Sansi was naturally not satisfied with just that. But even with his tracking skills, he found no signs of any large animals having been around that afternoon until the sun set, when he finally spotted a pheasant through some feathers on a hillside. The arrow struck like thunder. The arrow pierced the pheasant's body, and its inertia carried the corpse and pinned it to a nearby tree trunk. About 4 pounds. Pheasant is delicious, only second to pork in price, and this one could sell for about 71. But it's still far from enough. Chun Sansi could now be sure that there were no large game animals around the outskirts of Tiger Head Mountain. After all, he possessed the skill tracking, and he would not overlook any clue. No trace meant there really was none. Tracking, Entry Level. Progress: 101/200. Utility: Keen observation, light steps. Tracking is also about to advance to the next stage. Perhaps I should consider venturing deeper into the mountains. The deeper the area, the more abundant the game, but also the more dangerous. Typically, only experienced hunters, like Uncle Zhao from his village, would venture there. Starting from Second Layer Mountain, there are wild boars and even big cats and black bears. Every year, many hunters perish there. Previously, as a beginner in hunting, Chun Sansi wisely refrained from venturing too deep, but now it seemed he must. However, his archery was about to advance, so he might as well give it a try. I'll return and prepare well. Tomorrow, I'll scout around Second Layer Mountain. Chapter 6: Wolf Teeth Arrow. After making up his mind, Chun Sansi started to clean up the scene. When he was handling the wild chicken, he used too much force and accidentally broke the arrow shaft that was stuck in it. The quality of used arrows is worrisome. Chun Sansi shook his head, retrieved the arrowhead, and carried his game down the mountain. Having hunted all day, his stomach had been growling, but his spirit was still very full, always alert to his surroundings. It must be the effect of spirit refreshed. It seems that I should sparingly read more books at night, and not just think about happy times with Sister Lon. Archery, hunting, reading. I want to be a diligent person. It was still early today. When he passed through Yanbian village, many villagers saw Chun Sansi with a chicken in one hand and a rabbit in the other, carrying a full load. You boy are capable. Little Sure is really amazing. Just started hunting and can bring something home every day. Pushed like father like son. Lai Zi. Look at you, sour grapes. Can't stand to see others do well. What do I have to be sour about? This little money is not even enough to pay the taxes. Really though, when the topic of taxes came up, complaints could be heard everywhere. How many people's savings of a full year were squeezed clean? Brother Sure. Wait up. I was looking for you. Shun. Chun Sansi looked at the skinny and dark teenager running towards him. What's up, Shun? Brother, do you need my help? Zhang Shun had come to ask about the situation immediately after selling fish today due to the issue of early taxation. Aren't you still practicing your martial arts? Chun Sansi was somewhat moved. Gathering 3 liangs of silver in 7 days, no one had 100% certainty. If he could borrow the money in advance, it would naturally be better than good. If worst comes to worst, he could save up and double repay it, making a proper thanks. Martial arts doesn't urge in these 2 days. Paying taxes is urgent. Zhang Shun scratched his head and said honestly, Brother, come with me to my house, we have some silver. 3 liangs of silver. For ordinary folks, this was absolutely a huge sum. Chun Sansi was touched. 9 for 13 return. I can't just use your money for free. Brother, what are you saying? Zhang Shun said, not to mention that you taught me literacy since I was young. But do you remember that time we played in the river? If it wasn't for you pulling me up, I would have drowned by now. Why mention this? It's one thing to say, but to help during tough times is indeed precious. Brother, wait here. I'll go home and get the money. Shun didn't give an opportunity to refuse and turned and ran back madly. Since the other party wasn't asking for interest, Chun Sansi felt uneasy about using the money with no return. He carried his wild chicken and rabbit and followed, planning to offer them as a thank you gift. The two families lived not far from each other, reaching the destination in 10 minutes. Shun's house door wasn't even closed. Just as Chun Sansi was about to visit, a gust of wind brought the sound of an argument to him. Shun, 3 liangs of silver, are you mad? Mom, that's my brother Sher who saved my life when I was young. Saving your life, so what? Hasn't our family repaid him? When he fell ill before, wasn't it our family who paid for his treatment? Mom, our whole family has been working day and night for so many years, barely saving some silver. Isn't it just so you can enter the martial arts hall and become a martial master? At least, have some pity on your father? He's been lame for half a year and still hesitant to spend money on treatment, and you just give away 3 liangs of silver to someone outside. Chun Sansi stopped in his tracks, silently set down a wild chicken, and turned to leave. He did not hold any grudges for the unanswered help. In fact, he respected Shun's sentiment even more. Neither of them was from a wealthy family. Everyone had difficult days. He really had to rely on himself. Chun Sansi became even more determined to go to Second Layer Mountain. He reached the county's 8 treasures building before sunset. The rabbit weighed almost as much as the last one, sold for 71 won. With the money in hand, he didn't rush home but went to the market to prepare for the trip to Second Layer Mountain the next day. Yo, young Sher here again? Old Su greeted him warmly. Uncle Su, I'd like to buy some arrows. Chun Sansi's willow leaf arrows were okay for hitting rabbits and wild chickens, but if he truly met a large game with tough skin, they were not lethal enough. What kind are you thinking of? Uncle here has them all. Looking around, there were 7 or 8 types of arrows on display at the stall, all of high quality, some of which were obviously not something a civilian shop could make, belonging to the category of military ordnance. There was a garrison station 50 li outside Payang County City, and military ordnance circulating in the market was not a surprising matter. Not to mention, Old Su was from a military household, and with his son succeeding him and becoming a small flag, having a channel to resell some ordinary military goods was nothing unusual. Chun Sansi's gaze wandered over the stall. Most of the arrows were made of poplar wood, with bird feathers hanging on the tail, and their main difference lay in the arrowheads. Different arrowheads, different purposes. There were ones with strong penetrating power, ones with large wound profiles, ones for shooting horses, ones for naval warfare, and even specialized signal arrows for messaging, truly a wide variety. He finally chose a uniquely shaped arrowhead. Wolf teeth arrow. As the name suggests, the arrowhead had 2 side hooks shaped like protruding wolf teeth. Once this arrow hit, the side hooks would firmly lodge inside the body, and trying to pull it out would tear off a large chunk of flesh. If not removed, it would continue to grind the flesh. Whether for hunting beasts or hunters, it had a very strong lethality. Old Su said, "This wolf teeth arrow is good quality. I sell it to others for 23 won each, but for you, 21. Can't it be cheaper?" "Any cheaper and I'd be losing money." Chun Sansi bit his teeth and bought 5. But he understood the principle of sharp axe making light work. To make a sale, you have to be willing to invest. If conditions allowed, he would also like to buy a heavy bow. After all, the main force in killing with a bow and arrow lies in the draw weight. He intentionally took a longer look. The heaviest one on this stall was just the 4-force bow, with nothing heavier available. Only a heavy bow could pierce armor. It seems there was a limit to how far one could go in dealing in military arms. Money paid, goods delivered. The 2 arrowheads he had worn out previously, added together, deducted 11 coins, making the final payment 89 coins. A day's work for nothing, and quite a bit out of pocket to boot. Chun Sansi put the wolf teeth arrow into his bag and hurried home. On the way back, Chun Sansi ran into Qin Xiong and his ruffian followers, squatting on the essential path home, casting malevolent glances his way. They were clearly using this method to intimidate him on purpose. The evil spirit never leaves. It's impossible to hide. Better pay the tax first, then think of a plan. Chun Sansi chose to ignore them and went straight home. Big brother, he's very arrogant. Shall I go beat him up? The ruffians gritted their teeth and discussed sneeringly. Beat him up? Qin Xiong pointed at the bow and arrows on Chun Sansi's back and asked, Do you know what those are? Bow and arrows. A 4-force bow, enough to shoot you stone cold. You think you can beat him if he can handle that thing? Qin Xiong was somewhat frustrated. At first, he thought Mr. Chun was just a scholar, and that going hunting in the mountain was simply a stroke of luck. But after some inquiries, he learned that the kid could actually make sales 2 days in a row, proving he really had strength and wasn't just fooling around. Hunters in the village were actually not easy to provoke. They had only bullied the kid because his father had died and he was just a scholar. Of course, in this world, having strength was useless. Having money was important. Rabbits and wild chickens weren't worth much silver. If he couldn't gather 3 taels of silver in a few days, he'd still be under Qin Xiong's thumb. Late at night, Chun Sansi got out of bed agilely. As for Sister Lan, she was too tired and had fallen asleep. I'm still too young and impetuous. Chun Sansi was somewhat annoyed. He had promised to study at home. With no time for reading, he couldn't delay practicing archery any longer. Before going to the mountain, it was best to advance his archery to the next stage. He took his bow and stepped outside, coming to the clearing in front of the forest behind his house, beginning to practice archery under the moonlight. As arrow after arrow shot out, his proficiency continued to climb. He kept practicing until the late hours of the night. Only then did Chun Sansi return to his room to sleep for a few hours, getting up immediately upon hearing the roosters crow to practice archery. Shoo! Another arrow shot out, directly hitting an early rising sparrow looking for food from the treetop. Simultaneously, the panel changed. Skill: Archery Master. Progress: 0/500. Utility: Physical enhancement, natural bowman, effortless operation of a stone bow, within 70 steps, 3 shots in the blink of an eye with unerring accuracy. This time, when the panel upgraded, not only did Chun Sansi's strength and archery improve drastically, but even his muscles and bones changed, causing his physique to surge. With this physique, even though he had never practiced martial arts, he could easily draw a 1-stone heavy bow, hitting a target the size of a palm from 80 meters away with every arrow. In the dashing dynasty, 1 stone is approximately 150 kilograms. This weight of bow and arrows was generally only used by those practicing martial arts. A target the size of a palm, seen from 80 meters away, actually appears as just a dot. As for the finger snap triple shot, Buddhist scriptures have recorded 20 finger snaps make 1 luo yu, 20 luo yes make 1 moment, and 1 day and night consist of 30 moments. According to this explanation, a finger snap calculation comes to about 7 seconds. Finger snap triple shot. That is to say, the 4 actions of drawing the bow, setting the arrow, and firing take about 2 seconds for 1 accurate shot. A 1-stone bow, 80 meters, 2 seconds. Taken alone, these do not sound exaggerated, but when these 3 terms are combined, they are quite terrifying. Chun Sansi was somewhat surprised. He never imagined that proficiency could not only improve technique but also enhance physique. He felt his bones become more compact and solid, his arms and fingers noticeably longer. I don't know if this physique will be helpful for martial arts in the future. Anyway, he felt more confident about catching large game within 6 days. Brother, sure, it's time to eat. The gentle voice brought Chun Sansi back to his senses. After hastily eating breakfast, he took all the remaining salted duck eggs in the house, along with half a bag of sorghum. What are you up to? Gu Xinlan was puzzled. The salted duck eggs were understandable, but raw sorghum couldn't be eaten. What was he taking it to the mountain for? Gifts. Chun Sansi answered succinctly and was about to leave. Brother Sure, be careful these days. Gu Xinlan looked worried. Yesterday when I was on my way back, I saw Mr. Qin loitering near our house again.
I'm scared.
I know. Chun Sansi's tone was firm. Don't worry, my dear. He can't hurt you. My dear? Gu Xinlan's cheeks flushed slightly. Having Brother Sure say that, she indeed felt much less afraid. Chapter 7 Hunting Wild Boars. Second Layer Mountain was essentially a place where old hunters grouped together to go. Also, if they actually caught something as big as several hundred pounds, they would need help to carry it down. Over time, this naturally formed a small community. To join this group, it was best to have someone familiar show you the way. Otherwise, if someone decided to take your belongings, deep in the dense woods, you might not even find the body. You're going to Second Layer Mountain? Zhao Qiao was somewhat surprised. Little Stony. How long have you been hunting? Isn't it that my family hasn't paid the taxes for this year yet? Chun Sansi honestly said, other than Second Layer Mountain, where else can I gather this amount of silver in such a short time? Ah! Hearing this, Zhao Qiao couldn't help but sigh. These days, the government was as fierce as a tiger. He hesitated for a moment. All right, but I have to say it up front. If you come back empty-handed, you can't blame me. That's natural, Uncle Zhao, rest assured. Chun Sansi nodded. On the way up the mountain, Zhao Qiao began to explain the precautions. It's true that you can get goods in the deep mountains, but it's also common for people to lose their lives. If you encounter big worm or black bear, you'd better run quickly. And the most important point, avoid those in brocade clothes. Avoid those in brocade clothes? Chun Sansi queried. Yes. Zhao Qiao explained in a grave voice. Those who come to the mountain in brocade clothes to hunt are either martial masters from the martial arts hall or children of the wealthy. We can't afford to offend them. There were instances in the past where hunters fought with nobles over game, leading to direct loss of life. So later on, our hunters' activity area was limited to the south side of Second Layer Mountain, and few dared to go to the north side anymore. Just remember that. Finally, if you catch something too big to carry by yourself, shoot a whistle arrow into the sky. Nearby hunters who are empty-handed will come over to help carry it down the mountain. But of course, you have to pay them depending on the situation. That's about all I have to say. Be careful in everything, even villagers might try to trick you. He took out a bonehead arrow from the arrow bag and handed it over. The bonehead arrow, like the whistle arrow, belongs to the group of signaling arrows, but its head isn't made of metal. It's made of wood with hollows, making a loud noise when fired, having no lethal power. Thank you, Uncle Zhao. Chun Sansi was very sincere. A few salted duck eggs in exchange for this information was absolutely worth it. During the conversation, the two of them had already arrived at the foot of Second Layer Mountain. To avoid competing for game, hunters generally operated independently, unless they agreed to group hunt fierce beasts. Second Layer Mountain was deep and dense. The moment Chun Sansi stepped into the woods, he spotted many animal feces hidden in the soil, and footprints under the bushes within a 10-meter radius. Some hunting dogs can't even achieve what I do. I might not have a hunting dog, but I am better than a hunting dog. And this is just the entry level. He went all out, carrying bows and arrows, shuttling through the jungle, not missing the slightest movement. Second Layer Mountain had plenty of game, but mostly small creatures like rabbits and wild chickens. Large animals were similarly hard to find. Moreover, due to consecutive years of poor harvests and excessive hunting, the hunters of Second Layer Mountain were barely making ends meet, and it was common to return empty-handed. According to Uncle Zhao, the real abundance of game was on the north side of the mountain, but that was the hunting ground of upper-class people, and the poor, without martial arts skills, dared not venture there. Is even hunting oppressed? Chun Sansi didn't rush to hunt. At his current level, he could hunt small creatures like rabbits at any time. It was better to look for something bigger, even a roe deer would do. His focus was at full throttle. Chun Sansi not only didn't feel tired, but he also felt the world becoming clearer and clearer in his eyes, as if he was about to enter another realm. Indeed, after breaking through the critical point, the panel surfaced like ripples on water. Tracking concealment, mastery. Progress, 0/500. Utility, insight shocking, light as a feather. After experiencing a mysterious sensation, Chun Sansi felt his senses were elevated to a new level. Now, he could even clearly observe animal fur on the ground. Some wild animals intentionally hide their droppings, but they can't conceal the fur that falls off unintentionally. Moreover, his enhanced perception was not only useful for hunting but also essential for archery, which requires excellent eyesight. The palm-sized target center, 80 meters away, was merely a black dot, but if he could see even tinier things, naturally, his shooting accuracy improved. All these skills complemented each other. Combining this with the failing to forget after glancing once from reading, I feel like I've opened a Sherlock Holmes memory palace, but it's specially tailored for hunting. Chun Sansi bent down and picked up a black hair from the grass beneath his feet. This hair is half as long as a finger, fairly stiff, and not yet decomposed, indicating its owner was here not long ago. Every few steps, he found similar hairs, and after about 100 steps, clear footprints began to appear. He started following the trail. The rugged, complicated mountain trail was exceptionally easy for Chun Sansi to navigate. His speed was surprisingly fast, and he hardly made any noise, an embodiment of being light as a feather. I wonder if this counts as qigong. There's movement. He slowed his steps outside a bamboo grove, approaching the source of the sound within. He suddenly came upon a strong, black wild boar. In tow were 5 piglets. It was searching for food in the mud at the forefront, with the piglets grunting cheerfully behind, a family of pigs happily unaware of the looming danger. Jackpot! This sow weighs at least 300 pounds, and the piglets are even more valuable. Chun Sansi visualized waving silver coins calling him. He repressed his excitement and crept as close to the wild boar as possible. Though his shots were long-ranged, naturally, the closer he was, the more powerful they were, especially against the tough skin and flesh of a wild boar. Too far and it's hard to be lethal. Only when about 20 steps away from the wild boar did Chun Sansi stop on an upward slope. He quietly took the longbow from his back and notched a freshly made double-bladed barbed wolf teeth arrow. The 4-force bow now felt light as a feather in his hands, almost effortless to fully draw, feeling like he might even snap it with a bit more force. The bowstring was released, and the arrow flew instantly. Whiz! Since it was a back ambush, the arrow directly penetrated the buttocks of the wild boar, causing a sharp scream, and a flock of birds flew away in panic. Perhaps because the bow was too light, the arrowhead penetrated only about 3 inches into the flesh. Instead of running away, the wild boar entered a frenzied state, ignoring the blood flowing non-stop from its body, and charged towards him with heavy grunts. Wild boars are also a kind of fierce beast. If an ordinary person was hit by a wild boar, they wouldn't die but would have to lie down for half a month. Chun Sansi remained calm. The second arrow was already on its way. Hoo hoo hoo. Another arrow added to the wild boar's body. It visibly hesitated, but it didn't stop, just continued charging at a slightly slowed pace. The third arrow followed closely, directly piercing its skull. This time, the wild boar finally lay straight down, dead. The 5 piglets, startled, scrambled in different directions. With the complicated terrain and the small size of the piglets, any ordinary hunter would likely miss at least 2. But Chun Sansi's archery skills were extraordinary. Whiz, 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 whiz. In just a few breaths, all 5 piglets were pierced by arrows, dead beyond doubt. The arrows in Chun Sansi's arrow bag were just used up. Chapter 8 Apology. Over 300 pounds of an adult pig, plus 5 piglets. That should be enough for my taxes and leave me with a good amount of money. The only problem is, getting it back might be a bit of a hassle. This place was deep in the mountains, dozens of miles from the county town. Even if one person could carry it, there was simply too much game to take all at once. Chun Sansi thought for a moment before shooting a bonehead arrow into the sky. I'm far from the meeting spot. I don't even know where Uncle Zhao is, or if he can hear my signal. Sometime later, footsteps sounded from outside the bamboo forest. However, it wasn't Uncle Zhao Qiao who appeared, but a rough-looking man, muscular and with a scar on his face. When he saw the wild boars on the ground, he first looked envious, then incredulous at the sight of the young man's kill, and finally his expression turned rather odd. "Brother!" The man strode over, sizing up the youthful, tender-looking man. "I've never seen you around." Chun Sansi introduced himself. "Uncle Zhao Qiao from Yanbian village brought me up the mountain. My name is Chun Sansi. I've been around for 3 or 4 days and haven't caught anything valuable." The man squinted his eyes. "It's your first day up here, and you scored all this treasure. Just luck." Chun Sansi bowed slightly. "Please help me take the game to the county town, brother. I will pay you according to the village rules." "Helping is no problem at all." While the man agreed verbally, his eyes darted around. "But it's a long way from here to the county town, and about the price, well, he hadn't had any yield for days and was nearly unable to cook at home. Now that he had stumbled upon this opportunity, he certainly intended to extort a few extra copper coins." While the man was pondering, the sudden sound of a bowstring like thunder burst by his ear. He looked up and saw Chun Sansi had, unbeknownst to him, already released an arrow. At a distance, a rabbit in full sprint fell to the ground. 70 paces away. Plus, with the dense vegetation, the man hadn't even noticed the rabbit. What was most striking, though, was that he noticed Chun Sansi had seemed to draw the bow using just one finger for power, the other merely supporting the arrow without any apparent effort. The strength of one finger easily drew the recurve bow, and with such accuracy, could he possibly handle a one-stone bow under the right conditions? Since when did Payong County have such a young divine archer? No longer harboring ulterior motives, the man forced a bright smile. "Brother Sancher, no, brother sure. Don't move, I'll go pick it up. I'll carry the game to town for free. Let's be friends," he said, then hurried towards the direction of the rabbit. Chun Sansi stored his bow, shaking his head gently. With his keen perception that could even see the hairs clearly, how could he not realize this guy was scheming from the start? He had deliberately shown off his skills. If he didn't want to be bullied, he needed to display some strength. The man chopped 2 pieces of wood with a cleaver, and together with Chun Sansi, one in front and one behind, they carried the wild boar down the mountain. The man introduced himself. "My name is Wu De. I live in the village next to yours. I'm 16 this year. Please take me under your wing in the future, brother sure." Question mark. Chun Sansi looked at the scar-faced man smiling at him, temporarily at a loss for words. This guy is 16. Wild boar. Brother sure nailed a wild boar. They had just reached Yanbian village's entrance when the villagers burst into an uproar. A 300-pound wild boar isn't uncommon, but typically it requires the cooperation of 2 or 3 people. For one person to handle an entire lair of wild boars was definitely top-tier hunting. Not to mention, for the villagers, Chun Sansi was a scholar who had turned to hunting to survive. Word spread fast, and it did not take an hour before he became well known in the neighboring villages. At 8 Treasures Restaurant. The sow is 320 pounds, 18 copper coins per pound. The piglets, 20 copper coins per pound, altogether 60 pounds and 2 tails. The total is 6,964 copper coins. I'll make an executive decision on behalf of the boss and round it up to 7 taels of silver for you. And remember, if you catch fresh game in the future, don't go selling it to anyone else, little stone. Boss Lu Hongda waved his hand grandly, throwing over a pouch of money. Typically, 1,000 copper coins are equivalent to 1 tael of silver, but silver is a harder currency, not always easily exchangeable, and the exchange rates often fluctuate. Giving silver directly was obviously a courtesy. "Thank you, Uncle Lu." Chun Sansi took the money pouch, feeling its significant weight. 7 taels of silver. Not only was he set for his taxes, but he also had enough to buy winter clothes. You lad are truly impressive. Boss Lu Hongda marveled. At this rate, it won't be long before you can move to the city. If you could learn a bit of martial arts, that would really be making something of yourself. Speaking of martial arts halls, does Uncle Lu have any recommendations? Now that Chun Sansi had solved his immediate problems, it was naturally time to consider learning martial arts. The most famous ones in Piyang County are Tianyuan, Tailei, Yunhe, and Zhao martial arts halls, but they only recruit apprentices during specific periods each year, and it's already too late for this year. Honestly, for us commoners, there's no need to aim for the top halls. Learning just a few moves to bluff people is usually good enough. But if you're set on a major hall, you might ask Shunzi. Shunzi? Chun Sansi was a bit perplexed. That kid has been frequently treating martial arts academy disciples to meals recently, just over there across the street, and look, there he comes now. Boss Lu Hongda pointed behind him. Across from Eight Treasures restaurant, there was a relatively modest hall. Chun Sansi turned around and saw Zhang Shun stepping out of a diner with two young men in white robes. Brother Sure. Upon seeing Chun Sansi, Zhang Shun immediately ran over, his face apologetic. Bro, I've been meaning to see you these past few days to talk about last time. Chun Sansi cut him off. Shunzi, don't worry about me. I've gathered enough money. Your brother Sure just bagged a whole lair of wild boars today and earned 7 taels of silver from me. Boss Lu Hongda spoke up for him. Really? Bro, you're amazing. I wonder how long I'd have to fish to earn 7 taels of silver. Shunzi exclaimed in admiration, his envy pure and untainted by any other emotions. By the way, this is for you. Chun Sansi took out 3 pieces of broken silver, ready to pay off the silver both principal and interest. Brother, I can't take this. I wasn't able to help you last time. That's a separate matter. Your dad also needs money for his leg treatment. After some back and forth, Chun Sansi finally managed to stuff the silver into the other's pocket and changed the subject. Are you treating the martial arts academy disciples to a meal? Yes. Zhang Shun lowered his voice. I missed the Tailei Martial Arts Academy's recruitment period, so I thought I'd try something to see if they could accept one more disciple. He just happened to meet 2 disciples outside the academy, and they offered to put in a good word for him, which is why he invited them to dine and build relationships. This was already the 3rd meal. Even though the small restaurant wasn't as extravagant as the Eight Treasures restaurant, it still cost quite a bit of money. I see. Chun Sansi looked across the street at the 2 martial arts academy disciples. One was picking his teeth and the other was patting his round belly and burping, seemingly impatient, urging, Little Shun, what are you doing? Come on, weren't we going to enjoy some drinks? The senior brother I introduced you to is highly regarded by our master. You get what I mean, right? Don't be mad, brothers. I'm coming right now. Zhang Shun hurriedly said goodbye. Chun Sansi watched them walk away, feeling that the gazes of those 2 academy disciples seemed unreliable. I should remind Shun to be careful later. He didn't linger any longer and hurried off to the government office to pay the tax of 3 taels of silver. Seeing the tax officer check off his name in the register, he finally felt a massive weight lift from his shoulders. Only Qin Xiong left. I wonder if he will try to cause trouble in other ways. I need to hurry home, or else Sister Lan will start to worry again. Chun Sansi rushed back home. At the home's entrance, Gu Xinlan was caught up chatting with a few women, who were all admiring how capable her man was. How he could read, earn money, and was handsome too. Ultimately, when a man earns money, even his shortcomings can be turned into advantages. Exine Lan, you must hurry to give your brother Sure a child. Don't worry about that. With Exine Lan's big hips, she'll definitely be able to have a son. The women kept bantering, making Sister Lan's cheeks turn bright red. Exine Lan, look, your man is back. Brother Sure. With no interest in small talk, Gu Xinlan hurried over to greet him. We're eating rabbit tonight, Chun Sansi said smiling, holding out an unsold rabbit. Gu Xinlan didn't even glance at the rabbit. Her hands kept touching here and there, How are you? Brother Sure. Are you hurt? I heard that wild boars are really fierce. Chun Sansi was stunned for a moment. No worries, I'm fine. Brother Sure. Please don't provoke such frightening things next time. After confirming that her man was unharmed, Gu Xinlan finally relaxed and helped him unload his things. Must be hungry. I'll go cook. Chun Sansi watched Sister Lan's busy figure and suddenly felt a profound sense of belonging. He had a home in this world after all. Soon, the aroma of food from the kitchen wafted around. It stirred such a craving in Chun Sansi's stomach that it wouldn't stop rumbling. Knock, knock, knock. Just as they were about to eat, someone gently knocked on the door. Who is it? It's me, Qin Xiong. Hearing this name, Gu Xinlan's face turned white, and she clutched at Chun Sansi's sleeve, indicating for him not to go outside to eat. It's fine, I'll go and see. Chun Sansi tucked the kitchen knife behind his back and went out to greet the guest. He thought Qin Xiong, knowing he had paid his taxes, was either looking for a new problem or was ready to escalate things, but it appeared to be the complete opposite. Qin Xiong was all smiles, holding a jug of the cheapest yellow wine. Ha ha ha! Little brother. Chun Sansi furrowed his brow. What's this? Little bro, I am here to apologize. While speaking, Qin Xiong casually patted Chun Sansi's shoulder, secretly applying force, only to find that his adversary didn't budge. Damn it! Where did this kid get such strength? He had just come home today and heard that the scholar named Chun had single-handedly killed a wild boar. Now it's autumn, and wild boars with piglets are extremely aggressive, and there had been instances of hunters being devoured by them. Handling a wild boar solo is definitely no easy feat. Yet this fellow is clearly just a useless scholar. Could it be he's naturally strong but took the wrong path, wasting his potential? Either way, Qin Xiong decided to give up on Gu Xinlan. He had been thriving in the surrounding 10 villages for years, raising his brother alone and sending him to the best martial arts hall, not just because he acted rashly on the surface. Who to offend and who not to mess with, he knew very well. If he really offended a formidable hunter, he should not venture into the mountains for the rest of his life. Otherwise, he might just receive a deadly arrow to his back. As for women, there are plenty more to choose from. If Chun Sansi is not one to be easily bullied, there are plenty of others who are. Little brother, there has been some misunderstanding between us. Let's clear it up in front of the neighbors. How about that? Qin Xiong deliberately raised his voice, attracting the neighbors who were cooking at home to come out and watch. Just as Qin Xiong thought Chun Sansi didn't know better. Finally, he heard the satisfactory response.
You jest, brother Qin.
Chun Sansi showed a cordial smile. I've always been one not to hold a grudge, moreover, there's no real enmity between us. Being a scholar truly suits you, brother, generous indeed. Content. Qin Xiong placed down the jug of wine. I won't disturb you any longer. Good, brother Qin, take care. After closing the door, Chun Sansi looked at the recurve bow hanging on the wall. Clear the account? When I was down and out, he took advantage and almost ruined my family. Now that I'm not easy to bully, he wants to dismiss it lightly. Where on earth is it so easy? Chapter 9 Hunter. At the dinner table, Sister Lan, elated by the joyful events, unprecedentedly helped herself to 2 chopsticks of rabbit meat. Paying all the taxes due and ridding themselves of the local tyrant, anyone would have been happy. Brother Sure. She looked admiringly at her man. That Mr. Qin must have heard of your abilities and didn't dare to mess with us anymore. You are truly incredible. Being able to shoot even a wild boar. No wonder she always thought Brother Sure was exceptionally strong. After dinner, Gu Xinlan sat beside the bed waiting as usual. But unusually, he was late coming into the room. It was only when she lifted the curtain that she saw Chun Sansi sitting under the candlelight, intently flipping through a book. Aren't you going to rest early today? Gu Xinlan was somewhat disappointed, but she quietly did not disturb him and went to sleep first. Skill. Reading, entry level. Progress. 120/300. Utility. Spirit refreshed, photographic memory. Chun Sansi gently closed the book and after confirming that Sister Lan was soundly asleep, he tucked a kitchen knife at his waist, slung the longbow over his shoulder, and tiptoed out of the house, blending into the night. The brothel. Sir, why not stay here for the night? Why bother going back? Scram, scram, scram. I still have things to take care of. Qin Xiong pushed away the courtesan who was holding him back and staggered out of the brothel. The cost for overnighting was triple. He wasn't foolish. The money at home shouldn't be wasted, and he needed to save it as a gift for his younger brother. Since he was young, he had lost his parents and had raised his younger brother by selling pancakes. Once he made a name for himself, he managed to save enough money to send his younger brother to the best martial arts academy in Piyang County. But practicing martial arts was indeed very expensive. The enrollment fee, master's tribute, and medical expenses were just the beginning. To receive the true teachings was yet another significant expense. The old folks at the County Martial Arts Hall would generally pass on their skills only to their own sons or direct disciples. Outsiders couldn't learn the real deal. His younger brother was no exception. He had been practicing martial arts for over 3 years and still couldn't learn the complete cultivation techniques. Fortunately, his brother was close to the young master. That young man was a debauchee who favored beautiful women. Perhaps by sending some beautiful women his way, there might be a chance to acquire the true teachings. Speaking of which, that Ms. Gu is really beautiful. Her looks, they just don't seem like those of a village girl. What a pity. Such a pity. Thinking about this, Qin Xiong felt aggrieved. He actually had to apologize to someone with the surname Chun. But this was only temporary. Once his younger brother could spare the time, what was a hunter considered anyway? No matter how skilled, could a hunter be more formidable than a martial artist? Given the chance, he could have his brother deal with Mr. Chun in the mountains, and even keep his family's young lady for his own enjoyment. Ha ha ha! Thinking of the young lady's buttocks, irresistibly round and plump, Qin Xiong laughed out loud. Ha! A gust of cold wind swept by, sobering him significantly. Looking around, he realized that he had unwittingly walked out of the town, surrounded by pitch darkness, with only the occasional crow caw breaking the deep silence of the night. Heh! My courage seems to be shrinking. For some reason, today Qin Xiong felt a vague sense of unease, as if someone was following him. He scoffed at himself and was just about to head home when suddenly another gust of wind came from behind. This gust was very sharp and precise, directly hitting the back of his head with a chilling iciness. This wind penetrated through the back of his skull and exited through the top, as if a horn was sprouting from his forehead. Qin Xiong fell straight down, never stirring again. Not satisfying at all. Chun Sansi emerged from the distant woods and approached to examine the body. When people practiced martial arts, they fought with swords and hand-to-hand combat. He had just pulled the bowstring from afar, and everything was over, making even the carried kitchen knife redundant. The process was too quick, leaving Mr. Qin dying too swiftly. Oh well, who makes me kind-hearted? Chun Sansi found about 3 fragments of silver on the body. Just this little? This scoundrel has been plaguing the village, surely making at least a few dozen silver pieces a year. Where has the money gone? Is practicing martial arts that expensive for his brother? After pocketing the silver, he began to ponder how to dispose of the body. There were arrow wounds on the body. It definitely couldn't be left here. Hunters were few and far between within tens of miles. Cutting off the head separately would cover him in blood, making it even more difficult to handle. Just throw it in the mountains. Chun Sansi hoisted the body. With the light as a feather skill, carrying a corpse did not slow him down at all. In just 2 hours, he arrived at Second Layer Mountain, threw the body in a secluded grove, and returned home to Yanbian village before dawn. Lying down next to the sleeping Sister Lan, Chun Sansi took a long breath. I guess I've removed a menace for my fellow villagers. Just not sure if his brother will come looking for me. I need to start practicing martial arts soon. He had no regrets. With Qin Xiong's character, apologizing was only temporary. His brother, gaining influence, would definitely seek double compensation in the future. Better to strike first rather than live in anxiety. The next morning, at dawn, the rooster crowed. Chun Sansi, as always, got up early to practice archery. After mastering archery, the speed of improvement drastically dropped. Because the bow was too light, he could now pull a one-stone bow. The 4-force bow was completely ineffective as a training tool. Heavy bows are not easy to come by. Even the martial arts hall wouldn't dare keep them privately, or it would be seen as plotting rebellion. Besides needing a heavy bow, it's time to schedule martial arts training. Chun Sansi silently calculated his next steps in his mind, while on the other hand, Exine Lan called him to breakfast. Clang, clang, clang. He sat down absent-mindedly, just picking up a cornbread, when suddenly the village was filled with the sound of gongs and shouting. The government! Chun Sansi's heart skipped a beat, but he quickly calmed down. It can't be because of Qin Xiong's affair. He only died last night. He's not worth such a big fuss. There must be something else. Indeed, the people from the county government's patrol office called everyone out and announced a major event. An assassin from the barbarian tribes had infiltrated Payang County and murdered the Payang County magistrate. The whole village was in an uproar. The government's people were here to search for the assassin's whereabouts. After gathering all the villagers together, the patrol office began searching every house and left grudgingly after half a day. The county magistrate has been killed, Exine Lan whispered. I remember this county magistrate had been transferred here less than 2 years ago. Seems like being an official isn't easy. Chun Sansi watched the departing constables, feeling something was odd. Why would a barbarian warrior kill the county magistrate? The forces guarding the border are from the garrison, not the county government. If they wanted to attack, they should target the skilled soldiers. Forget it. It's none of my business. Chun Sansi shook his head, lamenting that the world was becoming increasingly chaotic, which spurred him even more to earn money. With money, he could enhance his personal strength and protect himself in these turbulent times. After hastily filling his stomach, he took his bow and arrows and went hunting in the mountains. Chapter 10: Difficulties in Martial Arts Practice. No one caused trouble, and Chun Sansi was living a peaceful life. For 5 consecutive days, his life was a simple cycle. Hunting in the mountains, selling game at the restaurant, and then going home to sleep. As for Qin Xiong, his body was gnawed to nothing but bones by wolves the day after he died, and Chun even took the opportunity to shoot a few of them. A wild rabbit of 6 pounds, 2 pheasants weighing 5 pounds and 3 ounces, plus a 50-pound roe deer. 8 Treasures Restaurant. Chun Sansi, like a mission turn-in point in a game, habitually came here to sell game. Shopkeeper Lu Hongda clicked his abacus. Exactly 1 tael of silver. Keep it up. A single tael of silver, if not for the expensive prices due to chaos and war, would be enough to sustain an ordinary family for a month. But he appeared very calm, considering he had recently earned a sum of 7 taels at one time. Unfortunately, wild boars were not that easy to find. If only I could go to North Mountain. Uncle Zhao and the others said that in the real deep mountains there's a chance to find exotic beasts. One could sell for upwards of 10 taels or even an astronomical price. It's a pity. Without the backing of a powerful force, north of Second Layer Mountain was completely dominated by martial artists. If a country hunter dared to venture there, they might be beaten and robbed of their game at best, or even lose their lives at worst. It was very oppressive. I still need to inquire about joining a martial arts hall. Thinking so, Chun Sansi didn't rush to leave. After waiting about half an hour, he saw Zhang Shun coming to sell fish, carrying his basket. When the topic of martial arts halls came up, Shun began to curse. Brother, don't even bring it up. Those two had no intention of helping me. They just freeloaded food and drink, consuming a whole 2 taels of my silver. However, he lowered his voice. I didn't let them off cheap either. Yesterday, with a trap, I splashed them both with golden juice. It was at least a bit satisfying. Do they know it was you who did it? Chun Sansi was a bit worried. In recent times, commuting back and forth to the county town, he had also encountered many martial arts academy disciples who were arrogant and unreasonable, even those who beat up ordinary people on the street without cause. Shun's way of getting back at them might bring trouble upon himself. In some matters, you either don't do them at all or you must be ruthless in execution. Don't worry, they didn't see me. Zhang Shun changed the subject. By the way, brother, aren't you also planning to learn martial arts? Got any plans? Chun Sansi shook his head. What about you? Sigh, I'm worried too. Zhang Shun lamented. Apart from the 4 great martial arts schools, the rest of the martial arts halls in the county town are not that cheaper either, and the worst part is having to do strenuous labor for 2 years before you even start learning the real skills. Without 3 or 5 years, it's impossible to learn anything substantial. But what can we do? I'm going to try out at a martial arts hall with a better reputation after all. It was consistent with what Chin Sansi had learned. In this world, it's not easy to change one's fate through scholarship, and it's even harder through martial arts. In a nutshell, ordinary folks don't expect to live a good life. Working his hands to the bone in a lousy martial arts hall for 3 to 5 years was out of the question. Apart from the martial arts halls, there was actually another place to learn martial arts. The garrison. But as a military household, he would have to go to battle and face the enemy, especially now with the current state of turmoil and war. Let's go ask around first. After saying goodbye to Shun, Chun Sansi went to the market to seek out Old Su. When Old Su heard his question, he couldn't help but chuckle. How much silver does it take to become a military household? Little stone, have you lost your mind? You don't need a single coin to become a military household. Instead, they'd have to pay you. The garrison does want to recruit people, but how many are willing to go? The Great Qing dynasty had a history of over 350 years. After the Grand Ancestor founded the nation, he implemented the garrison and commandery system. In essence, it was a system of military colony farming. 7 parts farming, 3 parts military readiness. At the beginning of the dynasty, Great Qing had as many as 3 million military households, and they could be self-sufficient. The Grand Ancestor once said, "The soldiers of Great Qing need not consume a single grain of rice from the people." Such an astonishing coincidence? Chun Sansi couldn't help but recall a figure from his past life who started his empire with nothing but a bowl and carved out his own territory through sheer ruthlessness. Like the Great Ming, the garrison system of Great Qing deteriorated over time and was on the verge of collapse. 50 years ago, the chief minister had implemented reforms, which just barely extended the life of the regime until now. But listening to Old Su's tone, it seemed that the reforms were not very thorough, only managing to maintain appearances while the reality was still on the verge of collapse. 350 years is actually quite a feat. After all, the Great Ming only lasted for less than 300 years. Why could the Great Qing dynasty outlast the Great Ming by 70 years? Was it because there were no foreign-educated emperors? Or was it because this world had martial artists who relied on military force to suppress and extend their lifespan? Old Su said, "Little Shansher, do you want to practice martial arts?" Chun Sansi nodded in agreement. "If you just want to strengthen your body, the martial arts halls in Piyang County Town can satisfy you. But if you truly want to achieve mastery in martial arts, they are not enough. Either join a major school at the state level, or enlist in the military. But in all the land under heaven, is there a school bigger and stronger than the court?" Old Su said earnestly, "Child, think it over carefully. If you really want to enlist, your uncle can get you in. But why join the military in these chaotic times? I'm speaking the sincere truth as an old man. Just living a stable life as a commoner is quite good. Like that silly son of mine, always dreaming of making a name for himself, not realizing if he has the fate for it, sigh. Thank you for the advice, uncle." Chun Sansi bowed his hands in thanks and took his leave. This matter indeed required serious thought. His mind heavy with thoughts, he walked home. Before he even reached the entrance of the village, he heard loud and noisy arguments coming from inside. A young man in a dark cyan robe with a sword at his waist was leading 4 or 5 people in the village. stopping everyone they met and asking questions, as if they were looking for someone. With Chun Sansi's hearing, he could make out the conversation from a distance, but he didn't hide, walking openly past them and, as expected, was stopped. "Brother, please wait." The leading young man, dignified and polite in his speech, but his gaze bearing a hint of disdain, asked, "Have you seen my elder brother Qin Xiong?" "Brother Qin." Chun Sansi responded naturally, "I saw him a few days ago, what about him?" Qin Feng said coldly, "5 days ago, my elder brother disappeared without a trace, and there has been no word of him since." "Disappeared?"
Impossible.
Chun Sansi was quite surprised. Brother Qin was fine. How could he disappear? Qin Feng shook his head. "If there is any news, please inform us." "Hiss." Chun Sansi stroked his chin. "A few days ago, barbarians infiltrated Piyang County and killed the county magistrate. I wonder if it has anything to do with this?" Qin Feng paid him no further attention and turned to question the next person. "I wonder how well this younger brother of Qin Xiong has learned martial arts. The few disciples around him are calling him senior brother. Seems like he holds a high status. If I attacked by surprise, could I kill him with one arrow? I really need to learn martial arts." As Chun Sansi pushed open the door to his home, he did not smell the familiar fragrance of cooking. "Sister Lan hasn't come back yet? That's not right." It wasn't until half an hour later that hurried footsteps sounded outside the door. "Brother Sure, what's happened?" Chun Sansi asked. "Tax officials? Collecting taxes." Gu Xinlan leaned against the door frame, panting for breath, barely able to speak. Chun Sansi remembered that today was the last deadline for tax payment. In previous years at this time, the tax officials would bring government office workers to tally up, and those who couldn't pay the taxes would be taken away for hard labor. "Don't panic, speak slowly," Gu Xinlan said haltingly. "Aunt Li, Brother Sure, you should go and see. Aunt Li's family can't pay the taxes and are about to be taken away." Chapter 11. Tranquility is a luxury. "I ask you one last time, will you pay the tax or not?" The tax collector squinted his eyes, looking impatiently at the family of 3 before him. Zhang Shun said with righteous indignation, "Sir, our family paid the autumn tax 10 days ago." The tax collector held up the register in his hand, snorted coldly, "If you paid, then why isn't your family's name written here?"
Impossible.
Zhang Shun shouted, "I saw with my own eyes as you wrote it. You're trying to deliberately collect the tax from my family twice. Slandering." The tax collector slapped his whip down, knocking the young man to the ground. "Why don't I collect double from other families but only from yours?" A bloody gash appeared instantly on Zhang Shun's face. He gritted his teeth, attempting to argue, but Aunt Li hastily stopped him, putting on a smile. "Shun, keep your mouth shut. If the official says we didn't pay, then we didn't pay." The child was young and unaware of the tax collector's ferocity. There's a saying, "Fear not the official, but the one who enforces." Don't look at the tax collector as just a minor official. Sometimes he's more terrifying than the county magistrate. "Sir, please wait. I'll go back home and get the money to make up for it." Aunt Li had no idea when they had offended the tax collector, planning to deal with the current problem before anything else. She hurriedly went to retrieve the money. Soon after, a desperate scream echoed from the house. "Oh heavens! Where's the money?" The 13 taels of silver, hidden under their water jar, had vanished without a trace. Hearing the commotion, Mr. Zhang with a lame leg stumbled in, and after seeing the empty hiding spot, he fell to the ground. "Thief! There's been a thief!" The tax collector lost his patience, whipping Mr. Zhang twice in the back. "Are you playing me for a fool here?" "Sir!" Mr. Zhang grimaced in pain. "The silver was right here. There were 13 taels, 13 taels." The tax collector scoffed. "I could also say I have 3,000 taels of gold in my house. If you have no money, just confess your crime honestly." "Father!" Zhang Shun, seeing his father beaten, rushed forward in a panic, only to be knocked down by a whip. his face covered in fresh blood. He lay on the ground, not understanding what was happening. Only when he saw two figures in white robes in the crowd giving him a triumphant smile did he have a sudden realization. It was you. Zhang Shun staggered to his feet and charged at the two disciples. Give me back my silver! Go to hell! The slightly overweight disciple kicked the young man down. Where's the proof? Zhang Shun could no longer contain his anger. You're in cahoots with the tax collector. Slandering. Hearing this, the tax collector raised his hand and delivered several more whiplashes, beating the young man until his skin was torn and flesh exposed. Damn troublemaker. Like a rabid dog, barking at everyone. Take him away. The old fool to Tsangzhou to repair the city wall, the youngster to Hezhou to repair the riverbank. The onlooking villagers were silent as cicadas in cold weather. Seeing this, almost everyone understood what was happening, but nobody dared to say anything. Officials, martial artists, neither were people ordinary folks dared to offend. If the lords wanted you dead, you had to die. Zhang Shun was covered in blood and dirt, screaming in extreme frustration. He had toiled from dawn to dusk catching fish, saving up for 4 whole years to learn a few moves, just to have an easier life in the future. How did it come to this? Was it because he hadn't worked hard enough? Shun! Powerful voice rang out. Chun Shancher squeezed through the crowd. He saw the 2 martial arts academy disciples and quickly guessed most of the story. Shun's act of splashing the golden liquid had offended them, so they sought revenge by bribing the tax collector to tax them twice and then stealing the silver, aiming to directly cause the death of Shun's family. Thinking it over, Chun Shancher himself felt a chill. If Qin Xiong was willing to spend silver on bribes, he might very well have ended up with the same fate as them. He stepped forward. Sir, may I pay the tax on their behalf? Brother Sure. On hearing this, Zhang Shun felt so ashamed he couldn't lift his head. He hadn't insisted on taking out the silver to help Brother Sure before. How could he have the nerve to let Brother Sure help him now? Aunt Li and her husband felt the same shame, wishing they could just crawl into a hole and hide. Not just them, the watching villagers were also taken aback. The tax collector's face darkened. Boy, are you sure you want to meddle in this affair? I dare not interfere with the official's duties. Chun Sansi pulled the tax collector to a corner and pointed to Mr. Zhang, whispering, But this cripple, how could he handle the work? He's likely to die on the way, and that would just be a waste of food. The tax collector raised his eyebrows. You mean to say? Chun Sansi quietly slipped 2 taels of silver into his hand. Sir, let's forget about the cripple. As for Zhang Shun, he was disrespectful to you, so he deserves to do hard labor. That was all he could do. Clearly, the tax collector had come for Zhang Shun. Mr. Zhang was merely collateral damage. If Qin Sansi tried to intervene, it would not only fail to alter the outcome, but would also draw disaster upon himself. While he was speaking, the 2 martial arts academy disciples were staring at him intently from within the crowd. Better to save one if he could not save both. After all, Zhang Shun was young. There was at least a 20% chance he would survive the conscription labor. Hee. You sure know how to handle things, kid. The tax collector was amused. He took the money to teach Zhang Shun a lesson. The old man was essentially dispensable. 2 extra taels of silver? Why not? Thinking this way, he discreetly accepted the silver and announced, The head of the Zhang family has made up his tax payment. Let him go, and take the young one away to be dispatched to Hezhou. The decision was final. Those present mostly understood what had transpired. Little Stone, that move was clever. He didn't offend anyone and managed to save old Zhang's father. This kid really values loyalty and friendship. Such a pity he stopped his schooling. He would have made a good official if he'd pursued it. Little Stone, I, Lai Zi, am truly convinced by you this time. The villagers whispered among themselves, expressing their admiration for Chun Sansi's actions. Shunzi. Chun Sansi walked over to the thin and dark young man, gently patting him on the shoulder. I did my best. Brother. Zhang Shun knelt down with a thud. You saved my life and now my father's life. If I can make it back alive, I will be forever in your debt and work like an ox or horse to repay you." He knocked his forehead to the ground 3 times, making a loud sound each time. "What the hell? Putting on a grand play. Cut the crap and get moving." The government office constables took Zhang Shun away, while the tax collector continued to tally the next household. Aunt Li, watching her son being taken away, collapsed crying and lost consciousness, and Mr. Zhang sat numbly on the ground. Scenes like this on the last day of the autumn tax collection continued to play out. In Piyang County, at least 1/10 of the male population would be taken away. Most of them were farmers. After 300 years of land consolidation, more than 90% of the land in and around Piyang County had become the property of the rich people and the martial arts halls. The farmers were essentially tenants. Each year, they had to give half of their harvest as rent, and the remainder was taxed so heavily that they barely had enough to feed themselves. "Spare me, sir. For several years the harvest has been poor, and we are required to plant 10% spiritual grain on every acre. We simply cannot survive this way. Stop your nonsense. Take them away. Take them away." The Great Shang dynasty's taxation was multifaceted and intricate. The most bizarre was the immortal tax. 50 years ago, in the 21st year of Longqing, Emperor Longqing had a dream. He claimed to have met an immortal in the dream, who gave him some seeds and proclaimed that these could grow immortal herbs. These immortal herbs, when offered to the immortals, could ensure the empire's prosperity for thousands of generations. Consequently, from the 22nd year of Longqing, the emperor decreed, all cultivated land in the country must allocate 10% to the planting of spiritual grain, and those without cultivated land were required to pay the equivalent in silver tax. The problem was, this spiritual grain was not some mysterious immortal plant. It was inedible and even poisonous, deadly poisonous. Anyone who consumed it would die instantly. This effectively wasted land resources, making life even more difficult for the already struggling tenant farmers. Chun Sansi stood by the field ridge. Within half an hour, he saw at least 3 or 4 households that had their men taken away, not even sparing men as old as 70. Such suffering. The people were suffering. They were oppressed materially, which was bad enough. But the mental oppression was even heavier. Officials and martial arts academy disciples were considered masters. Who would dare provoke them? Just like what happened earlier when Chin Sansi saved someone. The look in the eyes of the 2 martial arts academy disciples was something he would never forget for the rest of his life. It seemed like a single wrong word could lead to his undoing. The feeling was truly unbearable. Just because he was a commoner, he was oppressed and exploited in every way, living his life with utmost caution. He suddenly made up his mind. Uncle Su was wrong in what he said. In such an era, living peacefully was a luxury far beyond the reach of the common people. Only by fighting vigorously might they have the chance to turn their lives around. Tomorrow, I will enlist in the army. Chapter 12, Joining the Military. Brother Shi, are you really going to enlist in the army? On the couch, Chen Sansi and Gu Xinlan snuggled together. Is it because of what happened to Shunzi's family? Yes, but not entirely. This was just one of the things that stimulated Chen Sansi. He thought of Qin Feng. He had killed Qin Xiong, and although he left no evidence, who knew if his brother would suspect him? What if he used the same methods? How would he respond then? What's more, what if the other party didn't care about evidence and wanted to assassinate him anyway? He didn't even know the various levels of prowess among martial artists. Could he really protect his little household with just a bow? As for peace and stability, it ceased to exist the moment he was transported here and targeted by Qin Xiong. He would be persecuted sooner or later without taking the initiative. Enlisting in the army. Not only could he learn martial arts, but he would also have a chance to gain status. Moving up in every aspect was the only correct way to seek security in a chaotic world. Chun Sansi spoke softly. What, you don't want me to go? You are the head of the family. It's up to you to decide what to do. I'm just afraid something might happen to you. Gu Xinlan said she had no objections. but her tone was filled with hidden resentment, and her almond-shaped eyes became moist, clearly worried about being left alone. "Don't scare me with your doom and gloom, or I'll have to shut you up." "No, don't, After 2 hours of intense discussion, the couple reached a consensus. Sansi didn't rush to sleep but picked up a book to read. Unknowingly, he became absorbed, and his proficiency steadily increased. Upon reaching a certain point, he had an epiphany, finding the words on the page simple and easy to understand. Things that he previously couldn't grasp were now clear. Skill. Reading expert. Progress. 0/800. Utility. Witty and clever. Spirit refreshed. Photographic memory. Witty and clever? Unlike archery, which directly strengthened the body, the changes brought by reading couldn't be directly observed and required heartfelt experience. Chun Sansi's most direct feeling was that he could easily comprehend what he read and retain it in his memory. This should be very helpful for my martial arts practice. But why has the requirement for advancement increased so much? Moreover, the improvements this book brings me are getting slower. It looks like I need to read different books. It's the same with archery. Only the army has heavy bows. Enlisting is imperative. Closing the book, he too fell into a deep sleep. The next day, the sun rose as usual. Chun Sansi carried cured meat and food into the city. Is the county under martial law? From a distance, he saw armored soldiers at the city gate scrutinizing people entering and leaving. He inquired and learned that the barbarian martial artist who had attempted the assassination of the county magistrate not only evaded capture but had returned and killed the master of the Yunha Martial Arts Hall in the south of the city. What a ruthless man! Chun Sansi was filled with emotion. After a search and interrogation, he smoothly made his way to the market and found Old Su. "Since you've made up your mind, come with me." Old Su didn't stand on ceremony. He took the items and led out a donkey cart, taking him out of the city. "I'll take you to meet my son." The dashing military households were hereditary. If your father was part of a military household, then your family, generation after generation, would be military households. The father would serve until he was replaced by his son, and even if there were no sons, other male relatives from the clan would take over to maintain the number of troops. According to Old Su, the military household registrations were numbered, and during the height of prosperity it was rare to recruit outsiders. Now they wanted to recruit people, but it was very difficult to find any. In the early stages of the nation's founding, the treatment of military households was quite good. They were issued grain pay based on the number of people in the household, they could learn martial arts for free, and they were even given winter clothes. The living standards were generally above those of the middle-class farmers. But gradually, everything started to change. The amount of military land somehow kept decreasing, and the soldiers' labor grew heavier and heavier. Old Su said that when he first enlisted, the situation was at its worst. Many military households could barely afford to eat with just their grain pay and had to work as tenant farmers for nearby gentry or martial arts halls, and some nearly became house slaves. With no other options, many military households simply ran away. For a time, in the entire Liangzhou Guard, the number of deserters reached a staggering half. It wasn't until the chief minister Yan Liang took office later on, spending 10 years of hard work to save the situation, that he managed to keep the garrison system from collapsing to this day, though the combat strength had become very weak. On paper, Liangzhou's frontier had 29 guards and over 160,000 military household soldiers, but if there were actually over 100,000, it would be considered good. The real main force guarding the Great Wall was under the commander's 8 northern camps, the elite troops that deterred the barbarian tribes. The 8 camps had generous treatment but only admitted the elite. You had to make a name for yourself in the garrison before you got a chance to join the northern camps. As the two chatted, they unknowingly left Payang County City. West of Payang County City lies the Huta Mountain Range, and to the north lies the frontier Great Wall. Between the county city and the frontier Great Wall was where the army resided. The garrison stationed there were not the vast fields of tents seen on TV, but a number of villages built for living. If there's no war, the soldiers would live ordinary lives, farming at sunrise and returning home at sunset. The military camps between the villages served as command centers and training grounds. Although Payong County is a frontier, due to the presence of the Longhu mountain range making troop movement difficult, it usually does not need to directly face large forces of barbarian tribes. Often it's just small bands of cavalry, which is relatively safer, Old Su explained. Old Su stopped the donkey cart outside the military camp and signaled for the young man to follow him in. You want to enlist? Old Su had a son later in life. His son was not very old, probably not yet 30, with a short beard and an air of vibrant energy. Learning that his father's acquaintance's son had come, he didn't ask any further and helped with the registration into the rolls. Military households are exempt from the grain tax every year. If it's just you, your monthly pay is 4 coins of silver, 7 for those with a wife, and 1 tael of silver for families of 5 or more. My dad says you can hunt? Old Su interjected. Little Shur is quite exceptional. In the villages for dozens of miles outside Payong County, everyone knows he's a skilled hunter. Subin nodded. If you can't become a military soldier later, you don't need to go to the array soldier. You can be an archer, with a monthly pay of 1 tael and 5 coins of silver. They proceeded to the military camp for registration and reporting in the Army record book, where he also received an old set of armor, a red hat, and a secret skill book. On the yellowed thread-bound book cover, it read Basic Spear Technique for Soldiers in 6 big characters. After receiving his items, from this moment on, Chan Sansi was a soldier of the Great Shang Dynasty's frontier. The full name of his unit was the Nding Prefecture's Payong Left Army 1000 Households Frontier Defense Unit. Lately, they've managed to enlist a few people, he said. Tomorrow, you'll formally report to the camp. The 100 household officer will speak at the martial arts arena and teach you martial arts skills. Remember to prepare well. Your performance when you first enlist will determine your future in the army. Once you become an array soldier, you'll never have another chance to advance. Chapter 13 Military Soldier, Array Soldier. This basic skill book, take a good look at it when you get back, and it's best if you can memorize it beforehand. It will help with the assessment. Subin emphasized. Then, ready to leave, he rested his hand on the knife at his waist. Old Man Su chuckled. Bin, why not teach little Shur a thing or two in advance, so he's better prepared? Subin's brow furrowed slightly, glanced at Chun Sansi and said coldly, I still have matters to attend to. You boy. We are all from the same village. What's wrong with helping out? Old Man Su pointed at his son, ready to scold him. Uncle Su, Brother Bin surely has military duties to tend to. There's no need to trouble him. Chin Sansi knew well. He and Subin weren't close at all. Getting a few tips was already quite generous. How could he dare ask for more? Humph! On the donkey cart back to Payong County, Old Man Su said grumpily, Little Shur, don't be like my foolish son, thinking himself a big shot just because he's a small flag, always looking down on people. If he won't talk, I will. The first 3 realms of martial arts are blood refining, bone training, and refining internal. Minor success in blood refining qualifies one as small flag, great success as flag leader, bone training qualifies one for hundreds commander, and refining internal for households commander. Of course, these are just the rough correspondences of realms to military ranks. The actual situation may be more complicated. As the rickety donkey cart traveled, Chan Sansi asked earnestly, What did Brother Bin mean by military soldier and array soldier earlier? Old Man Su explained patiently, Be it sex or martial arts halls, there are qualifications required for disciples, and the army is no exception. Generally, there is an assessment after you join the military. If you pass the assessment, you can become a military soldier. If not, you will only be an array soldier. A military soldier can further practice martial arts, receive resources, and retains the qualification for military promotion. An array soldier, due to limited talent, cannot cultivate martial arts. They train collectively in battle formations and lack the qualifications for promotion. Archers, cavalry, they are all types of array soldiers, but with slightly better treatment. Heh! I myself have poor root bone. I'm just an array soldier. Chun Sansi nodded thoughtfully, understanding the implication. The status of a military soldier was akin to that of a university graduate from a military academy in his past life, with potential for upward mobility, whereas a big head soldier could only ever be a big soldier. "I've told you everything I know," Old Man Su said somewhat awkwardly. "As for the cultivation techniques, I never quite grasped them in my youth. Better not mislead the younger generation. You should study it carefully when you get back." Outside Payong County town, the two parted ways. Chun Sansi quietly contemplated. "I definitely must become a military soldier. Otherwise, wouldn't my enlistment be in vain? And I wonder about my talent for martial arts." Back home, the meal had already been prepared. With the household's improved circumstances, they basically had white rice, salted duck eggs, and often meat with every meal. Gu Xinlan no longer went out to work as a female worker. Now she was a full-time housewife at home. At the dinner table, she brought up Qin Xiong with surprise. "Brother Shi, did you know that Mr. Qin has disappeared? His brother has been frantically searching for him lately, nearly out of his mind. Zhao San, who used to have conflicts with him, had an arm chopped off in the street. They say the blood was everywhere. It was terrifying. Zhao San was also a notorious thug, but he didn't operate in their area. Luckily, people in the village know that we've reconciled with the Qin family. Otherwise, they'd definitely come knocking. An arm chopped off in public? Martial Arts Academy disciples, truly arrogant." Luckily, Chun Sansi now had the identity of a military household. Even if Qin Xiong's brother suspected him, he wouldn't dare to act violently in public. At most, he would strike covertly. However, he also needed to quickly enhance his own strengths. After dinner, Chun Sansi couldn't wait to arrive at the empty space behind the house, and started reviewing basic spear technique of a Ray soldier under the moonlight. Though called a spear technique, the content inside was actually about pile work without any relation to weapons. Each page of the book depicted lifelike images, representing a pile work posture, with several lines of small text below that detailed precautions and cultivation experiences. His photographic memory finally came in handy, as, spending only around 15 minutes, he firmly remembered 36 pile work postures and began to practice. Chun Sansi followed the drawings in the booklet, naturally pointing his toes forward, chest recessed and back pulled up, shoulders sunk and elbows drooping freely, top of his head pressing up as if supporting something, ensuring he did not let it fall, maintaining the standard of the posture. The movements seemed simple, but when he actually began practicing, he realized they were not as they appeared on the surface. Following the movements depicted, just after a few breaths, Chun Sansi felt his body changing. Starting from the soles of his feet to his calves and then to his torso and arms, his whole body began to heat up, as if the pile work was some kind of activator, opening up some mechanism in the human body. In this state, Chun Sansi's physical and mental energy rapidly depleted, and he was drenched in sweat within just half an hour. Having mastered archery and significantly enhanced his physical condition, he was definitely among the best of those who had never practiced martial arts. Even so, he began to feel exhausted after training in the fifth pile work. He clenched his teeth and persisted until he had mastered exactly 10 pile works, then finally couldn't hold on any longer and sat down on the ground, his face turning pale. "Thanks to the improvement in my physique from mastering archery. Otherwise, I definitely couldn't have lasted till the 10th pile work. Just don't know if compared to others. Is my speed considered fast or slow?" After finishing the training, Chun Sansi's first feeling was hunger, the kind that made him dizzy. "Brother Shi, I've made some food. Would you like to eat something?" A gentle female voice reached his ears. Chun Sansi then realized Gu Xinlan had not rested and had been waiting for him all this time, and even prepared supper. Without a second word, he rushed into the house and devoured the food wolfishly, swallowing 5 rolls of white bread and a bowl of rice mixed with pork fat. Yet he still felt somewhat unsatisfied. Indeed, practicing martial arts consumes a lot of energy. After eating, Chun Sansi, watching Sister Lan tidying up the dishes, didn't even feel the slightest romantic inclination anymore. Just pure exhaustion. Felt like eating meat was necessary. Even though his family's conditions had improved, they weren't lavish enough to eat meat at every meal. "Looks like I need to be more generous to myself," can't just focus on saving silver. Exhausted, Chun Sansi lay in bed while Sister Lan massaged and relaxed his body, and soon he fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, they hadn't even gotten out of bed when they heard Qin Feng had come to the village early in the morning to find his brother. Clearly in worse temperament than before, obviously quite anxious. Chun Sansi paid no heed and went to report at the military camp after breakfast. "Where is my elder brother?" Qin Feng gathered all the local bullies who had previously worked under his brother's command and questioned them one by one. "Brother, we really don't know," a sharp-faced bully said. "We last saw our boss 7 nights ago. After dinner, he said he was going to the county town to have some fun and didn't take us with him, and then we never saw him again." Another bully cautiously mentioned, "Brother, that night was exactly when the county magistrate was assassinated. Do you think it could be the barbarians?"
Impossible.
Qin Feng stated with certainty. Those barbarians on this trip would definitely not kill civilians indiscriminately. He seemed to realize he misspoke, paused, then corrected himself. "I mean, murdering people would only expose more traces." "Brother." The bullies looked helpless. "We even asked Zhao San, but beyond him, we really can't think of anyone else daring enough to harm our boss." Qin Xiong had many enemies, but mostly they were vulnerable individuals like widows and orphans who would dare to provoke him. "I do know one person." The skinny bully spoke up. "That scholar from the Chun family had some disputes with the boss before." "The Chun family?" "Yes. The guy from Yanbian village who is the best at hunting." Chapter 14 Flag Officer and Selected Point. Payang County left Army 1,000 households. Military camp. "Brother Bin." Chun Sansi reported on time. Subin held his sword by the waist, his brow slightly furrowed at the affectionate address, "Brother." "In the camp, address by rank henceforth." "Okay." "Su Flag Officer." Chun Sansi was indifferent. Only then did Subin nod in satisfaction, his face still expressionless. "Go change into your armor, then assemble at the martial arts arena. The Lord 100 households will teach you martial arts." "Okay." Chun Sansi casually found a corner and started to change into the armor he had previously been issued. Though called armor, its main body was actually cotton, but with armor pieces affixed to the surface. This armor was referred to as either cloth armor or dark armor. As for the real armor, like those seen in TV dramas, only military officers were allowed to wear them. The assembly horn sounded. Chun Sansi had just changed. Arriving at the martial arts arena, a wide, flat, yellow mud ground had already gathered about 30 or so people. Scattered around, some spirited, some listless, some tall and robust, others thin as rails. About half of them were locals, the rest didn't seem to be from Payang County. "Line up, line up." A soldier came to direct everyone to form lines. Following that, a fat man with a goatee beard took the lead, flanked by 2 officers, strolling out one foot after the other. Raising his voice, he introduced himself. "My surname is Wang, first name Ji. You can call me 100 households Wang. I am responsible for teaching you the basic martial arts of the border army. The pile work was distributed yesterday, you should all have received it. After pile work, there's spear technique. Combining the two for practice constitutes the complete basic spear technique for military soldiers. Today, I will personally demonstrate it to you." The chubby 100 households readied his posture, his bulky body as stable as Mount Tai, performing the pile work as smoothly as flowing clouds, without a single deviation. Next is the spear technique. He reached out, catching an iron plum blossom short spear thrown by an adjacent officer. The spear, about 2.5 meters in length and not exceeding 3 meters, was still considered a short spear. The previously steadfast 100 households Wang, upon receiving the plum blossom spear, suddenly became very agile, his iron spear thrusting out like a storm, the sound of tearing air echoing throughout the martial arts arena. Leaving everyone stunned, it was their first time witnessing true martial arts. Before they could recover, a set of spear techniques coordinated with pile work was already demonstrated. "That's it." The crowd looked at 100 households Wang, who had tossed aside the iron spear, clearly not intending to explain further. That quick, who could see clearly? Wang Ji ignored the murmurs below, cleared his throat, and spoke sternly. Let me talk about the assessment standards for the new soldiers. 3 days pile work, 7 days spear technique. Those who can fluently execute spear techniques combined with pile work within 10 days will become military soldiers. The rest will be array soldiers. For military soldiers, pay starts at 3 taels per month, with supplemental medicine provided every 7 days. Based on cultivation or meritorious deeds, one can be promoted to officer. Moreover, among you, anyone who can first cultivate the first strand of chi blood will be directly promoted to flag officer, plus eligibility for next year's selected point. Direct promotion to flag officer. Hearing this, everyone was interested. Who wouldn't want to be an officer right away? Regarding the subsequent selected point eligibility, very few understood it. The 100 households on stage didn't seem inclined to explain either. Finally, a lean man with a goatee from the crowd dragged out his words and started explaining. This selected point means selecting the elite. 3 years ago, after the Lord Governor took charge of the entire Northern Territory, he started selecting elite from each garrison. Those who succeed in selected point could directly enter the Heavenly Strategy Camp and become direct disciples of Supervisor's son. TSK. I thought it would be a huge promotion and great wealth. Exactly. Who doesn't know that confronting barbarians in the 8 camps requires risking one's life daily? I'm not going. Some were greatly disappointed. You know nothing. If you want to go far in martial arts, you need the guidance of a powerful figure like Supervisor's son and the resources of the 8 camps. Right. Where are there shortcuts to success without risking your life? Another group argued. Enough. I've taught all I'm going to teach. 100 households. Wang interrupted them, quite impatiently. Next, you practice on your own. For specific tips on pile work and spear technique, if there are things you don't understand, go ask a flag officer. Ha! Fishing his statement, he yawned, massaging his shoulders and scratching his back as he left. That's it. What was just taught? Everyone looked at each other in dismay. The entire teaching process had not exceeded 20 minutes. Without even a detailed explanation or slow-motion demonstration, who the hell could learn it? The pile work they could somehow manage. They each had a manual and could mimic like drawing a gourd from a model. But what about spear technique? No one could remember it. Someone went to ask the small flag for advice. Only then did they find out it cost money. To demonstrate once was 30 coins, to teach hands-on was 50 coins. The prices were marked clearly, honest to all ages. Hearing it cost money immediately deterred most people. If they had money back home, enough to eat well, who would join the army? Of course, there were also a few ambitious ones who wanted to make it as military soldiers, willing to pay to start learning from each action of pile work. Watching the absurd scene unfold, Chun Sansi was rather speechless. This was the damn military. This could be used to make money? No wonder the garrison was increasingly corrupt, its combat effectiveness ever declining. He couldn't help but shake his head. Luckily, Chun Sansi had a photographic memory. He didn't need someone else to explain. He took a deep breath, positioned his stance firmly, and the familiar burning sensation returned. Each movement previously demonstrated by 100 households Wang had been firmly imprinted in his memory. Now he checked for any missed or incorrect movements. After confirming there were no mistakes, he began practicing the new movements. In less than half an hour, about half of the 30 or so people on the martial arts arena had fallen, the strain of pile work being too much for most to handle. However, quite a few were still persevering. Chun Sansi keenly observed this. A boy younger than him was only slightly slower in practicing pile work, and his breathing rate was different from the others while practicing, seemingly having some special techniques. Upon closer inspection, it seemed extremely similar to what 100 households Wang had demonstrated. Initially, he thought the prolonged aura of the household officer was a trait of a martial artist, but now it seemed likely to be part of a cultivation technique. Are we practicing a compromised version? What do you mean? Chun Sansi looked at the flag officers waiting to collect money next to the martial arts arena. How could he not understand? The breathing skill was most likely also going to cost money. Truly plucking feathers from crossing geese. But according to Uncle Sue, it's already easier to learn something in the army compared to the martial arts halls. Let's master pile work first. He was confident about becoming a military soldier, though he might not immediately advance to flag officer to qualify for selected point. He also had no full guarantee. Keep working hard. Not far away. Inside the tent. 4 or 5 military officers were gathered around a table, eating and drinking. In the midst of enjoying themselves, the tent was abruptly flung open. A high-ranking military officer clad in lock armor strode in. The officers immediately put down their food and drink, standing up all at once, greeting with clasped fists. Lord Thousand Households! Lord Thousand Households! Xiang Tingchun surveyed the mess inside the tent. Frowning deeply, he berated them. Idiots! Not training the soldiers, not practicing martial arts, just knowing to drink. If you're really that idle, go to Payang County. Help the city guards find barbarian assassins. A group of 100 households bowed their heads, not daring to make a sound. Xiang Tingchun scanned them one by one, his gaze finally resting on a middle-aged military officer. 100 households Luo. I've already submitted your promotion to Deputy 1,000 Households to Commander. A reply should come soon. Thank you, Lord 1,000 Households. The middle-aged military officer showed surprise. MHM. Xiang Tingchun nodded, then continued to address the others. In recent years, barbarians' attacks have been constant. Our great Shang dynasty is in need of more people. You folks should not always think about making trivial profits. Teach what needs to be taught. Yes, Lord 1,000 Households is correct in his teachings. The officers echoed in agreement. Xiang Tingchun shook his head, lifted the tent curtain, and left. Within 3 seconds, the officers had picked up their drinks again. Come. Let's all toast to 100 households Luo. Here's to celebrating your promotion to Deputy 1,000 Households. Ha. They all congratulated Luo 100 households. Only Wang Ji, while toasting, muttered something silently and secretly spat on the ground. Chapter 15 Pig Killer and Su Wulong. Martial Arts Arena. More than 2/3 of the people were sprawled across the ground haphazardly. 1/3 were too exhausted to continue practicing, while the remaining 1/3 had given up from the start. For them, becoming a soldier was just a way to get by, or, for some, they had been forcibly conscripted. Only the last 1/3 were still doggedly persevering. Among them, Chun Sansi was making the fastest progress, having reached the 25th pile work. Next was a youth with a special breathing technique, who had reached the 17th pile work. Last, there was a bearded burly man who had just about managed to reach the 12th pile work. All 3 had started practicing as soon as they got the cultivation technique the night before. The rest, at best, had only managed to reach the 7th pile work. It seems that the physical improvement brought by my expertise in archery is quite remarkable. Chun Sansi couldn't believe how his natural bowman physique was benefiting him so much in martial arts. He wondered what the next advancement would be like. The youth and the bearded man beside him kept glancing over at Chun Sansi as if competing with him. Damn! Chun Sansi was somewhat speechless. When he reached the 26th pile work, he began to feel more and more drained and decided to stop. It wasn't because he was lazy, but he understood that one can't make haste when eating hot tofu. If he forced himself to continue, it might cause irreversible damage to his body and backfire. Seeing him stop, both the youth and the bearded man collapsed to the ground right after. Hey, what's your name? The bearded man wiped off sweat with his hand and asked, panting heavily. Chun Sansi, Chun Sansi replied. Chun Sansi, the bearded man exclaimed in surprise. The one from Yanbian village? Chun Sansi was astonished. You know me? The man laughed heartily. In the country, who doesn't know the good-hearted and skilled hunter from Yanbian village? That can't be right. Chun Sansi found it strange. Good-hearted and just referred to the time he saved Zhang Shun's father, right? But that was just a small matter involving 2 taels of silver. Not something that should make him famous, surely? Zhang Shun's old mother berated and beat you just because you owed her family 2 coins worth of life-saving money. She even wanted to sell your wife to Qin Xiong to pay off the debt. You didn't hold any grudge, and on the contrary, you risked retaliation from martial arts academy disciples and offered 5 taels of silver to save someone. The man was vigorously thumping his chest, his voice booming. Where else can you find such a loyal and just man these days? Brother, I admire you. ? Chun Sansi was full of question marks. He had been close with Zhang Shun since they were young. But when had they become sworn brothers? And since when had Zhang Shun's mother berated and beaten him? What did the matter with Qin Xiong have to do with Aunt Li? He wondered who could have spread such wild stories. Was this the so-called rumors compounding upon rumors? I share the surname Zhu, with a single name, Tong. Zhu Tong said with a clasped fist. If you don't mind, I'll call you Brother Chun from now on. Chun Sansi returned the gesture with a clasped fist. The other youth approached as well. My name is Song Yen. Your pile work is quite fast. Impressive. You're not bad yourself, Chun Sansi said. Zhu Tong spoke rudely. Don't pay attention to this kid. Chun Sansi asked in confusion. Brother Zhu, what's this about? Before Zhu Tong could respond, Song Yen preempted. The cultivation technique you guys learned is missing a part. But mine isn't because 100 Households Luo is my uncle. He taught me in advance. If you want to learn, you can offer 8 taels of silver to ask the various 100 households for instruction. You sure have the nerve. Being able to say that with a straight face. Zhu Tong had happened to see this kid with 100 Households Luo yesterday in the garrison, overhearing something about a breathing skill. Okay, thanks. Chun Sansi nodded, just as he suspected. Song Yen nodded too, and then went to find some steps to sit and rest. Zhu Tong pulled out a stuffed pancake from his bosom and handed it over. Chun Sansi didn't stand on ceremony, and while munching on the pancake, he chatted with Zhu Tong, getting to know a bit about each other's background. Zhu Tong was the pig killer from Zhu family village, who, not long ago, had beat someone up because he couldn't stand seeing a widower bullied and almost got sent to the southern region to labor. It had cost more than half of his family's silver to work things out and change it to enlisting in the military at his hometown instead. Old Zhu, pass me a pancake too. As the two of them were talking, a hand stealthily reached towards Zhu Tong's bosom but got slapped away. Scram! Chun Sansi looked up and recognized the man who had been explaining the meaning of selected point to everyone earlier, appearing to be almost 50 with patches of gray hair already showing. Zhu Tong introduced him with displeasure. This is Su Wenkai, a notorious layabout from Zhu family village. Hey, who are you calling a layabout? Su Wenkai protested. All day long, you either loaf around at home doing nothing or gallivanting about. Usually, it's your old mother farming the land to support you. If you're not a layabout, then who is? Zhu Tong sneered. There you go, with no one to do the work and earn the money after your mother passed away. You're short on tax payments. Hence you were dragged here to fill the ranks in the military. Failing to pay taxes also could lead to military enlistment. As for Zhang Shun being sent to work on the canal, it was purely because he offended someone. You're talking nonsense. Su Wenkai retorted agitatedly. At home, I am one who reads 10,000 books, and when I travel far, I am one who travels 10,000 miles. I'm a man destined for great things. Zhu Tong spat out mockingly, calling yourself Wulong, and yet you can't even pass the exam to become a scholar, and you're giving me lip. All right then, before I scram, how about giving me a pancake to eat? Will you? Su Wenkai hadn't eaten for 2 days. In these past 2 years, unless there was a war, the garrison didn't even provide meals. If every meal was guaranteed, who wouldn't be a soldier? Such a disgrace. Zhu Tong, in the end, still threw a pancake to him. Su Wenkai immediately ran cheerfully to the side, took out a book, and while savoring the pancake, he read with relish. Chun Sansi noticed the heavy bundle behind him seemed to be full of books, so heavy that the old scholar could hardly straighten his back. Mr. Su. He initiated a conversation. Might I borrow a book to glance through? I'll return it to you undamaged after I'm done reading. At home, there was only one book left, and it was difficult to make further reading progress by reading it over and over. Buying new books seemed a waste of money, and upcoming martial arts training would require more silver. Not lending. Su Wenkai didn't even ponder over it. Chun Sansi hesitated for a moment, then asked again, Mr. Su Wulong, lend me just one book and I assure you I will return it without a single scratch. Ahem. Su Wenkai nearly choked on the pancake, then asked, What did you just say? Mr. Su Wulong, I said I wish to borrow a book from you to read. Chun Sansi repeated. Su Wenkai squinted his eyes in pleasure. Considering such sincerity, you must be a person who loves reading as well. Yes. Chun Sansi admitted frankly. I was a scholar too, tried for the scholar exams for several years without success. Couldn't continue like that and hence ended up enlisting. Truly so? Su Wensai's spirit lifted. Truly so. Good then, I knew it. Su Wenkai, filled with righteous indignation, said, The great Shang dynasty's imperial exams are utter nonsense. Testing only on rote essays. What's the use? Us genuinely talented individuals are all buried in obscurity. Pick whatever book you want to see. He spread out his bundle on the ground, showcasing an assortment of books ranging from poetry to storybooks, from histories to tales of the bizarre, everything one could want. If it weren't for gathering money for my mother's coffin and burial, I would still have a house full of books. Chun Sansi randomly picked one. Thank you, Mr. Su Wulong. The garrison didn't provide food. Normally, after a certain time, the military households would all go back home to eat. Chun Sansi also packed his things. Before leaving, he sought out Su Bin to ask if he could get a heavy bow. If proficiency alone was so helpful, achieving small achievement was even more promising, so he couldn't let his archery practice lapse. Chapter 16 Heavy Bow. A bow. Su Bin had been preparing to go home for a meal. He and his father did not live together, but near the garrison in a military settlement, where he also had a wife. Come with me. Su Bin frowned, his expression displeased. The two went to the garrison's arsenal, and after speaking with the clerk in charge, they entered the warehouse specifically used for storing bows and arrows. You're using it for hunting, right? Su Bin said, Normally speaking, before official allocation, soldiers are not allowed to possess weapons privately. However, I don't use bows and arrows, and a flag officer's position just became available, so you can use it for now. He paused. Additionally, I'm very busy. So unless there's something crucial, you should go to your superior. The underlying message was clear. He was helping with the bow and arrows this time but did not want to be bothered again. All right. Shanshur will remember the help from Su Flag Officer. Chun Sansi was not someone who liked to bother others. But in order to improve, he had no choice but to be shameless this once. The clerk unlocked and pushed open the large warehouse doors. Su Bin finished his instructions and left, allowing Chun Sansi to choose on his own. On the wooden racks of the storeroom, an entire wall was hung with bows. Shang Army's standard-issue bows and arrows primarily came in two types, the small Shao Bao and the big Bao. The big Bao was also known as the Kaiyuan Bao. The pulling force ranged from 4 forces up to 2 stones. The clerk in charge of the warehouse said, Take whichever bow you can pull, and then you will be given 20 arrows and an arrow bag. However, the heaviest standard-issue bow here is just the 2-stone bow. Heavier bows are used by military officers, and you need to custom order them from the army's forge. But ordinary people don't need them. He saw Chun Sansi taking down the heaviest bow from the furthest corner, and hurriedly said, Hey, what are you doing? That's the heaviest. A 2-stone bow. That's what I want. The 2-stone bow. Chun Sansi's profile data showed he could easily pull a 1-stone bow, which meant he was not just limited to a 1-stone bow. Easily pulling it indicated that his strength was far beyond that. He estimated he could manage the 2-stone bow, though it would be strenuous. But considering that his strength would continue to increase with martial arts practice, It was better to opt for a heavier bow beforehand to avoid needing a new one soon after. 2 stones. The clerk looked up and down at the young man, who was clearly not a military officer. He quickly said, "Don't be reckless. I must remind you that there's a target range outside, and you need to hit the target from 60 steps away to take it with you." "No problem." Chun Sansi did not waste words and went straight to the target range outside the warehouse. He held the bow and arrows, examining and getting accustomed to the feel. This bow, being the heaviest Kayuan bow, was made with high-quality purple bamboo as the core, songyu wood for the limbs, and cow horn and hardwood for the bow tip, making it structurally more complex than a recurve bow. He nocked an arrow and drew the bow, realizing that after 2 days of pile work, his strength had noticeably improved. Was the effect of practicing martial arts so immediately visible? No wonder it consumed so much of the human body. The 2-stone bow weighed about 300 pounds. Chun Sansi gritted his teeth, his back and arm muscles coordinating as he exerted force, veins popping on his forehead and slowly pulling back the bowstring. Hum! A heavy sound erupted. The bow thundered, and the arrow struck like lightning. Bang! Almost instantly, the arrow hit the target with a loud bang, punching a large hole through the 2-inch thick target and then landing far behind on the ground. Bullseye! The clerk hurried into the target range, looking at the hole in the target, exclaimed, 70 steps? A 2-stone bow? A bullseye? It was Chun Sansi's first experience with a heavy bow, and even he was startled by the powerful impact. If this were used against a person, even standard armor might not hold. "You're new here? Just starting martial arts?" The clerk picked up the arrows and ran back. "You can pull a 2-stone bow even before starting blood refining. Does Subin have such a fellow countryman?" Chun Sansi asked. "Can I take it now?" Sure. The clerk nodded vigorously. "Come here, I'll give you 20 more arrows. Just so you know, you'll have to pay for any damage when it's not wartime. It's 50 coins per arrow, so use them sparingly. A heavy bow naturally pairs with heavy arrows. The price is also higher than that of ordinary arrows." Chun Sansi had just shot an arrow and immediately felt an improvement in his proficiency. Skill: Archery, proficient. Progress: 230/500. Utility: Natural bowman physique. Easily draws a 1-stone bow. Within 70 steps. Snaps fingers 3 times, hitting the target every time. With the practice accumulated from hunting in the previous days, his proficiency was nearly half. With the heavy bow, it shouldn't take long to advance to the next stage. "I'm so hungry." The physical exertion of that half-day was truly too much for Chun Sansi, and a single pancake was not nearly enough. He simply decided to head home with his bow and arrows. The garrison discipline was lax. Furthermore, since the soldiers lived in the nearby military village, they could go home any time after reporting for duty. Chun Sansi didn't even have an official assignment yet, and no one was inclined to supervise him. When he was close to Yanbian village, his attire of blue armor and red hat drew the attention of the townspeople. "I was wondering why I hadn't seen you around these past 2 days, so you've joined the military households. Not going to lie, little stone, you actually look quite the part in that outfit. Imposing indeed, but I reckon you won't have many good days ahead. Uncle Lai Zi, you really ought to drop dead. Heh, you don't believe me? Just wait and see." At these words, Chun Sansi stopped in his tracks and approached a middle-aged man with a mottled bald head and ringworm, saying, "Uncle Lai Zi, what do you mean by that?" Lai Zi looked around furtively, then lowered his voice. "I heard from Ergu and a few others that Qin Feng's brother is planning to kill you." Qin Feng. So he had come looking for him, had he? Chun Sansi was not surprised nor afraid. With his military household status and without evidence, the other party definitely couldn't just harm him recklessly. Not to mention the ongoing wars. The status of military households during peacetime and wartime was entirely different. Harming a military household without any reason was akin to challenging the court. Moreover, Qin Feng wasn't someone of significant power or influence. Otherwise, his brother wouldn't need to devote all his energy to acquiring silver to support his martial arts training. At most he would scheme behind the scenes. Thank you for the warning, Uncle Lai Zi. Chun Sansi continued on his way into the village. As soon as he entered, he saw several of Qin Feng's underlings rushing off to report his arrival. Brother, Chun Sansi has returned to the village, but Tianyuan Martial Arts Academy. Qin Feng put away the long sword in his hand and turned to ask coldly, but what? He's wearing a military uniform, the ruffian said. I found out that he seems to have joined the army these past few days, wearing that armor. Shouldn't we avoid making our move directly? Qin Feng closed his eyes and took a deep breath, suppressing his irritation. From what he had gathered, the hunter named Chun could be the only one strong enough and possibly responsible for his brother's disappearance. He had initially planned to capture him, chop off an arm to force the truth about his brother's whereabouts. But now, I didn't expect him to have joined the military households. The great Shang dynasty was in constant warfare at the time, and he was merely a disciple of the martial arts academy. Attacking a military household in the street was purely suicidal. No, we can't let him train in martial arts. Qin Feng suddenly felt a sense of urgency. This guy used to be a scholar who couldn't even touch spring water with his fingers. The moment he picked up a bow and arrow, he had food to eat and his physical foundation isn't bad. If he truly becomes a military soldier and gains position over time, wouldn't my difficulties increase? I can't let things go smoothly for him, absolutely not. Chapter 17 Breathing Skill. Returning to the cozy small home, Gu Xinlan was bent over a desk, meticulously sewing clothes stitch by stitch. Upon seeing her man return, she immediately dropped her work and came out to greet him.
I'm hungry.
As soon as Chun Sansi spoke, Sister Lan busied herself in the kitchen. He sat down and began to read through the books he had gotten from Su Wenkai. The book titled The History of Dashing was a history book, recording major events since the founding of Dashing. Before Dashing, there was a chaotic era similar to the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms. The grand ancestor Chao Xie, originally a house slave, forcibly carved his way out during the turbulent times and reunified the fissured nation after more than 100 years. It's worth noting that Chao Xie was also a sword god. Rumors had it that he once used a flying sword to take a life from 10 miles away and single-handedly broke through an army of 2,300. Has this already exceeded the realm of martial arts? Chun Sansi quickened his reading pace. Indeed, Grand Ancestor Shang was a unique figure in martial arts, and such exaggerated individual combat power never appeared again thereafter. For the next 300 years, every emperor pursued the martial arts prowess of the Grand Ancestor, but none succeeded. After Emperor Longqing ascended the throne, he simply turned to Taoism. He even dared to use 1/10 of the country's land to cultivate spiritual grain to offer to the immortal. Did Emperor Longqing really see an immortal? Otherwise, he's not a fool. Why would he willingly give up 1/10 of the tax revenue to make offerings? He's making offerings to the immortals, letting the common people foot the bill. Skill. Book reading, small achievement. Progress. 18/800. Utility. Keen perception, spirit refreshed, photographic memory. Chun Sansi felt a surge of energy and simply closed the book as the meal was ready. Half a pot of rice, stir-fried beef, salted duck eggs, along with a bowl of fish soup. He devoured everything in a whirlwind, leaving nothing behind. Chun Sansi didn't sit idle for a moment and soon went outside after regaining some strength. I need to master pile work entirely tonight. Late into the night in the countryside, a full moon, an old house, 2 figures. One outside the house, agile and tall, diligently practicing martial arts under the frosty moonlight. One inside the house, graceful and lovely, threading a needle by the flickering candlelight. Phew! I've completed the 36 moves of pile work. Finally completing all the pile work moves, Chun Sansi collapsed exhausted on the ground. Having finished pile work, starting tomorrow he would begin practicing spear technique and the breathing skill which he must not forget. After eating the prepared midnight snack, he rested briefly, then got ready to practice archery. Gu Xinlan followed him out. Her almond eyes filled with reproach. She said reproachfully, "Are you trying to kill yourself? Don't worry. Practicing archery isn't as tiring as martial arts training. I know my limits." Chun Sansi reassured her as he lifted his longbow, only to be abruptly stopped by her grab. "No more practice. You may not care about hurting yourself, but I do. We're not starving. Why push yourself so hard? Come, let's go to sleep inside." The next day, the dawn gently broke and the light dispersed the mist. Chun Sansi started his morning with archery practice. Skill: archery mastered. Progress: 350/500. Although drawing the two-stone bow was exhausting, it improved his skill much faster. The sweat wasn't for nothing. Chun Sansi was satisfied. He checked the time and decided it was time to pack up and leave. Before heading out, he didn't forget to sift through his chest and pull out 8 liang of silver. Damn, that's expensive. After deducting the cost of food, drink, personal needs, and buying fabric for clothes over this period, he had only 12 liang of silver left, which nearly emptied his savings. After this busy period, I must continue hunting, can't lose the skill that feeds me. Having secured the silver, Chun Sansi put on his armor and reported to the garrison. Just as he was stepping out, someone called out to him. Zhao Qiao and Wu De came running, one after the other. "Uncle Zhao," Chun Sansi asked, "what's this about?" "Got a matter to discuss with you." Uncle Zhao looked at the armor on Chen Sanshur without much questioning, as he probably already heard about it. "Right?" Wu De took over the conversation. "Brother Shur, do you know about the black bear of Tiger Head Mountain?" Chun Sanshur slightly nodded. He had long heard that there was a black bear on Tiger Head Mountain, and every year there were hunters who fell victim to it. "That beast, it has killed again," Uncle Zhao said through gritted teeth. 3 donkeys from the neighboring stone village went up the mountain some days ago and never returned, until last night when his father found him, and only his head was left, eaten by the black bear. Additionally, as there is hardly any game to hunt recently, a few of us discussed whether we could take down the black bear to exchange its body for some silver to get through the winter. However, we alone couldn't manage it. We need you as well. When the time comes, whoever contributes more gets more money. Bear hunting. Chen Sanshur didn't rush to reply. It seemed like the surrounding hunters were driven mad by poverty and had started considering hunting the bear. With their hunting bows, they were no match at all. He indeed had a heavy bow, but it still posed a significant risk. "Let's wait a couple of days then." Chun Sanshur agreed, and after briefly discussing the timing with them, they parted ways. As soon as he arrived at the barracks, he saw Zhu Tong cursing loudly. "Damn it! 8 taels of silver. Why not just rob?" Having come to the barracks, he naturally wanted to give it his all. However, the garrison was too corrupt. To practice martial arts, one needed to pay first. Who knows how many talents were missed because of this? "That's nothing." Su Wenkai was rather indifferent. "Do you know why we, who committed offenses, were not sent to serve far away but ended up in this military settlement? Because in recent years the higher-ups have been investigating payroll fraud, and they are gathering numbers. They feel a loss if they don't seize this chance to make some silver." "Brother." After Zhu Tong became familiar with them, he started using a more affectionate nickname and said earnestly, "Are you learning the breathing skill? I'll teach you." Seriously, after learning the breathing skill, practicing pile work isn't so exhausting, and the progress is much faster. Su Wenkai immediately grabbed him. "Old Zhu, are you seeking death?" "Old Zhu, I appreciate your kindness, but let's not." Chun Sanshur shook his head. Zhu Tong was really naive. If the lower ranks were allowed to teach each other privately, how could those above make money? Looking around, there seemed to be 5 or 6 people who had learned the breathing skill. He was not planning on saving money. After understanding the situation, he took his silver and went to find the household's Commander Lu. Commander Lu looked him over, and after asking his name, immediately refused. "I'm not available." Household's Commander Zheng. "Could you? I have others to teach." Household's Commander Zhang. "I don't teach." Households Commander Xiong. I don't know how. Chun Sancher tried several commanders in succession, and unbelievably, none were willing to teach him. The price was exactly the same. He realized something was wrong, and with a mindset to test one last time, he walked into the tent. Household's Commander Wang, who had taught them spear technique yesterday, was lying on a chair, idly eating peanuts with a pile of shells at his feet. Chun Sancher saluted. I have seen Household's Commander Wang. Wang Ji glanced at him sideways, and after a long pause, sat up leisurely. So, want to learn the breathing skill? Exactly. Chun Sancher respectfully said. I would be grateful if Household's Commander Wang could kindly teach me. Agreed. Wang Ji spat out the peanut shell from his mouth and spread out his large hand, gesturing with his fingers. Bring it here. So straightforward? Chun Sancher, who was almost ready to give up, had not anticipated this at all. Could it be that these commanders had earlier agreed to distribute the number of apprentices? A bit odd. But at this point, if he wanted to learn the breathing skill, he had to pay. With due respect, he handed over 8 taels of silver, and Chun Sancher stood waiting quietly. What are you stupidly standing there for? Household's Commander Wang, unapologetically pocketing the money, then waved him away. Sir, what does this mean? I'm tired today. I'll teach you in a few days. At that, Chun Sanchi's heart sank with a thud. Chapter 18. As long as the mind does not slip. Sir, you should. I said 2 days. Can't you understand human speech? Feeling the anger in the other party's tone, Chun Sansi didn't dare to continue, respectfully bowed, and withdrew from the tent. Wait 2 days? I'm afraid it's not just 2 days and then another 2 days. By the time the 10-day assessment period is over, it'll all be old news. Others pay money and are willing to be taught, but when I pay, they refuse to teach? Even a fool could see he was being deliberately targeted. Since joining the military camp, Chun Sansi had not offended anyone. So who was out to get him? 2 possibilities. First, Qin Xiong's brother. He was dressed in a military uniform, so Qin Feng didn't dare to touch him but feared he might make some achievements in martial arts, so he targeted him in this manner. But Qin Xiong's brother didn't seem capable of mixing up with the true inheritors. He shouldn't have the power to connect with the 100 households. So the second possibility, 100 households Luo. 100 households Luo's nephew is currently ranked second fastest in practicing pile work. He's worried that I might steal Song Yan's future. It makes sense now. Chun Sansi felt an immense pressure. Climbing up the ranks is truly fraught with obstacles. How about it, who's teaching you? I heard Household's Commander Lu teaches with the most patience and offers the best deal. Zhu Tong approached to inquire. After learning the outcome, he was furious. What kind of nonsense is this? Taking money and not teaching? I'm going to reason with him. Old Zhu, you can't go. Su Wenkai advised. This brother Chun must have offended someone. This. Zhu Tong scratched his head. So what do we do? Among all these people, it's Stone who practices the fastest. The qualification for the selected point should naturally belong to him. Otherwise, what if I teach him on the sly? Surely nobody would notice. Old Zhu. It's really not necessary. Chun Sansi didn't want to drag others down with him. Even if the others had the breathing skill, he was still the fastest at practicing pile work. There might still be hope. With that thought, he took a plum blossom spear from the rack near the martial arts arena and started practicing. Spear technique. Zhu Tong was astonished. Stone, you've started practicing spear technique now? Not just him, everyone at the martial arts arena took notice. It's fine. Zhu Tong shouted loudly. Stone is so impressive, everyone can see it. And if any military officer notices and reports it, there's bound to be a superior who would value his talent. Su Wenkai looked at him with the eyes one uses when observing a naive child and gently shook his head. Clearly, that's not how things are. There were no superiors around, but there were plenty of small flags, none of whom intended to poke their noses into others' business, including Su Bin, who passed by. He had just arrived at the camp today and heard the arsenal clerk speaking of his fellow villager as a divine archer, highly likely to become a military soldier, so he thought of taking a look. Then, he saw Chun Sansi being targeted, unable to learn the breathing skill even with money. This kid, offending people as soon as he arrives. Subin glanced in the direction where Lord Thousand Households usually worked, took a step that way, but quickly retracted and, with a sigh, went home. It's definitely your second uncle. Zhu Tong grabbed Song Yen by the collar. It's your second uncle who's making things difficult for Stone. I don't know. Song Yan's face turned red. I didn't ask my second uncle to do that. Humph. Zhu Tong cursed. In my opinion, there's no need for an assessment. Just give the selected point qualification to you directly. I'm going to find my second uncle. Song Yen broke free and ran straight out of the army camp. Inside the tent, he found his uncle and voiced his doubts. What's the matter? The military officer Luo, who was reading military books at the desk, looked up. Isn't this a good thing? As he looked into his nephew's clear eyes, he put down the military books and continued. I did have this intention, but let's not mention that I have yet to be promoted to Deputy Thousand Households. Even if I were, the other 100 households, especially Fatty Wong, wouldn't all be willing to listen to me. Actually, just yesterday, Lord Thousand Households sent us to cooperate with the martial arts hall in the citywide manhunt for the barbarian assassins. Afterwards, the young master of Tianyuan Martial Arts Academy invited us for drinks, and your name came up over the table. Heaven knows how he offended the people of Martial Arts Hall. We've all been indebted to Tianyuan Martial Arts Academy for many years. Naturally, we should give them face. This. Song Yen hung his head. Wouldn't this be too unfair to him? Fair to him. Luo Dongquan felt helpless toward his naively righteous nephew and put down the military books he nearly threw. Yena, why worry about others? Focus on your training to get the selected point qualification. Your concern should be entering the governor mansion in the future. Do you not know that without a mentor or a family backing, one can never don the crimson robe embroidered with the immortal crane? Entering under Sun Dusher's command is your only hope. Out you go. Don't bother me again. Meanwhile, in 100 Households Wong's tent, a couple of 100 households were gathered. Hey Fatty Wong, you sure are ruthless. Householder Xiong joked. It's one thing not to teach the lad, but why did you also take his silver? Ha ha ha. The drinks are on me later for the brothers. Wang Ji was very pleased with himself. But, Household's Commander Lu spoke somberly. I remember that Chun Sansi seemed to be the fastest in this batch to learn the pile work. It's a shame to waste such a promising youngster. Since when has the army lacked promising youngsters? I also learned pile work in a day and a night. Wang Ji dismissed. What the army lacks are true geniuses. Ones who master pile work in half a day and spear technique in 3 days. Those are worth cultivating. That's right, after all, in our shabby place, any resource shared with others means less for ourselves. Household's Commander Lu stroked his chin. But if this lad doesn't make it, it looks like the selected point qualification will fall to Luo's nephew. If he really gets into the elite of the 8 camps, he could even manage to get Luo over as well in the future. That would be quite a leap to success. Huh. Come to think of it, Fatty Wong, if you could bring along a genius, you might be able to return to the 8 camps. You don't want to stay in this desolate place forever, do you? I would like to. But darn it, where do I find a genius? Wang Ji fiddled with the silver ingot in his hand, putting an end to the conversation. Martial Arts Arena. Chun Sansi began practicing his spear technique. With his superior memory, his mind seemed to have a slideshow that repeatedly played the scene of 100 Households Wong demonstrating the spear technique. Pile work, which already exhausted physical strength greatly. Add spear technique to that, and Chun Sansi immediately felt as if his chi power was being drained by a pump. Fortunately, he was mentally prepared and persisted. With every swing of the plum spear, his heart raced, and his lungs felt uncomfortably constricted, as if he had reached his limit running, with a taste of blood in his throat. Breathing skill was likely meant to aid, to ease the pain and speed up the training. But If it was just an aid, that meant one could learn the complete spear technique without it. It simply meant enduring more pain than others. As for the speed, so long as one trained fast enough, being slightly slower was no big deal. As long as one doesn't falter in resolve, there are always more solutions than difficulties. Chun Sansi's teeth gritted audibly as he continued swinging the iron spear in his hands. Chapter 19. The Trend of the World. 36 Spear Techniques, each one with 18 variations. Chun Sansi pushed through and finished the first 3 techniques. But at the same time, bolstered by the breathing skill, Song Yen also finished the pile work and began practicing spear technique, catching up significantly in progress. If only I could train harder and faster. Chun Sansi stopped. He decided to take a break and bring his archery to a small achievement level. The last time he had a breakthrough and obtained proficiency, it improved his bones and physique. If he could achieve a small achievement, the effect might be even better. Time to eat. The garrison was not too far but not too close either, about 20 miles from Yanbian village. To save time, he didn't go back home for meals but went to an inn in the military settlement owned by a retired old couple. Give me 5 pounds of cooked beef, a bucket of liang rice, and a chicken. After Chun Sansi and Zhu Tong ordered their food, before they could even start eating, someone else came over and sat down. Tired to death from your laziness. What do you want now? Zhu Tong had no pleasant expression. Brother Chun. Su Wenkai ignored him and said to Brother Shi with a cheeky smile, the pay won't come until next month, and I'm completely broke and starving. Can I share your meal? Of course. Chun Sansi ordered 2 more dishes and some more staples. Brother Chun is such a righteous man. You'll accomplish great things one day. Su Wenkai unapologetically tore off a chicken leg and started devouring it, grease dripping from his mouth. Sure, you're too kind-hearted. Zhu Tong cursed. What's the use of feeding him? He's useless. Who's useless? Maybe one day you'll benefit from my presence. And besides, I don't eat for free. I can enlighten you about the state of the world, broaden your horizons. Su Wenkai swiftly polished off the chicken leg, sucking on the bone until nothing was left. Then, licking his lips and in a lowered voice, he asked, Gentlemen, what do you think of the fate of the great Shang dynasty? Of course, it's not exhausted yet. Zhu Tong muttered. Although the officials are despicable, there are still more than 2 million military men and many generals. I heard the rebellions in the south have been quelled. Wrong. Su Wenkai continued to eat as he surreptitiously nabbed another chicken leg. Zhu Tong glanced around to make sure no one was listening before saying, You mean to say that the barbarians will eventually destroy our great Shang? Completely mistaken. Su Wenkai shook his head vigorously. The barbarians may seem fierce, but with Supervisor Sun, they will never really succeed. I'd wager that the downfall of Shang will be at the hands of its own people. You see, these rebellions may be quickly suppressed, but they keep cropping up, and with time, one of them is bound to break through. At that moment, Chun Sansi interjected, It's like kindling a fire, which can eventually ignite the whole plain. SSS. Su Wenkai visibly paused at these words, as if savoring them, then slapped his thigh. What an exquisite phrase! It perfectly conveys what I mean. Brother Chun. Truly a scholar like me to be able to utter such a brilliant phrase. They were not my words. Chun Sansi explained, Please continue, Mr. Su. Ahem. Su Wenkai cleared his throat. I predict, within 5 years, the world will descend into complete chaos. That will be the end of the great Shang dynasty's run, and the time for Mr. Wulong to rise to greatness. Give it a rest. Zhu Tong found it annoying. All you do is spout nonsense. You better figure out how to master pile work. If you can't even do that, you won't even qualify as an array soldier. You'll end up caring for horses or repairing walls. Chun Sansi looked at Su Wenkai, a hint of surprise in his eyes. Having received 9 years of education, it wasn't strange for him to foresee the end of the Shang era and the onset of chaos. But Su Wenkai was a local, and moreover a rural one, for whom such foresight was quite impressive. Despite the awkwardness of always bumping into the Prime Minister, it seemed he genuinely had something of substance. After the chat, they returned to their meal with gusto, sated with food and drink. Chun Sansi didn't continue practicing martial arts, but instead took his bow and arrows to the shooting range. The more chaotic the world seemed to become, the more he felt the need to strengthen himself, not just in skill but in status too, to remain unscathed in the torrent. He drew the bow and notched an arrow. Bang, 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 bang. On the martial arts arena, a series of sounds like thunder exploded. After more than 50 arrows, Chun Sansi's arms began to ache, but he dared not stop, continuing to aim and release one arrow after another. Whoosh! Keep up! By the afternoon, a stir arose in the military camp. A few households' commanders gathered their soldiers, and a troop of over 300 fully armed men hurriedly set out toward the direction of Payong County. If they're not heading to the Great Wall, then it's not an enemy invasion. But what in Payong County could warrant mobilizing so many people? Most likely it's the citywide search for barbarian assassins. Not long ago, Chun Sansi thought that barbarian assassins would never be his concern, but now it seemed he might well be involved in such operations in the future. Forget it. Continue with archery. Bang, 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 bang. As the troops passed by the shooting range, the thunderous sound of arrows caught the attention of the householders' commanders. Has this kid given up? Not practicing his spear technique, but instead practicing archery. Householder Xiong was chewing on a bamboo stick. Without the breathing skill, the pain of cultivating techniques is doubled. How many people can endure that? Household's Commander Lu gave a surprised sound. A 2-stone bow? 100 hits from 70 steps on the target? This kid is actually a divine archer. Indeed he is. Householder Xiong also showed a look of surprise. Household's Commander Lu clicked his tongue in amazement. I wonder what he did to offend the Tianyuan Martial Arts Academy. Such a pity, such a pity. Yo-ho! Householder Xiong raised his eyebrows. Old Lu, that look in your eyes. Quite affectionate, eh? Feeling tempted. I do indeed feel a bit sorry for the kid. Household's Commander Lu looked toward the shooting range. How about this? I'll ask the young master later what this kid did to offend him. If it's nothing serious, I'll help smooth things over. Deal? And you guys can't compete with me for him. I'm not that idle. Householder Xiong turned to the left. What about you, Fatty Wang? I, Wang Ji, have seen true talents in the 8 camps. Would I fancy such goods? Wang Ji dismissed it with disdain. Let's hurry on, go to the city and get it over with, then drink and visit the brothels tonight. Bang! On the shooting range, Chun Sansi was alone, practicing from dawn till dusk. To save time, he didn't even go for dinner, simply asking Zhu Tong to send over some meat and dry food. He was drained of energy. The 2-stone bow became extremely heavy. Chun Sansi slowly lifted his arms, hooked his trembling fingers around the bowstring and, with all his might, shot out another arrow. Bang! Once again, the arrow pierced the target. At the same time, the panel reappeared. Skill, archery, small achievement. Progress, 0/1000. Utility, arms like apes, waist like bees, stunning physique. 3 shots in a breath, piercing yang at 100 steps. Chapter 20, Mastering in one night. A familiar feeling assaulted him once again, and this time it was more intense than ever before. Chun Sansi stood there, feeling his archery skills improving rapidly. From 70 steps to 80 steps and finally 100-step piercing. A target the size of a willow leaf 100 steps away was nearly invisible to the ordinary person. Yet he could hit it with every shot, and that 2-3 shots in an instant. 20 instants make 1 finger snap. 3 instants, roughly 1 second. From drawing the bow to aiming and then firing, it only took 1 second. Even the top snipers of his previous life needed 2 seconds to aim. Besides the improvement in archery, more noticeable was his body. For some unknown reason, his body began to grow and reshape for the second time, with his bones changing to better suit bow usage, reaching the extreme limit. Archer. For archers, the longer the arms, the more suitable they are for pulling the bow. Thus, his arms became sturdy and elongated, resembling those of an ape. The power of the back determines the upper limit of drawing the bow. Thus, his backbones became more compact, and his waist slim yet powerful. Ape arms and a wasp waist. The bones were astonishing. The whole process, as if anesthetized, was completed with rapid speed. Accompanied by this, the fatigue on Chun Sansi's body was swept away, leaving him feeling refreshed and full of energy. He opened his eyes again. Unbeknownst to him, night had already fallen. The vast target range was empty, with only the bright moon hanging high. Chun Sansi simply ate some leftover dry food from noon, then went to the martial arts arena, picked up the Mei Hua iron on the Lan Chi, recalled the 36 basic military spear techniques, and slowly began to practice. The muscle strain from overlapping pile work and spear techniques followed, causing uncontrollable physiological shivers. He almost shattered his back teeth, yet his hands did not pause for a moment. Previously, when practicing spear techniques, his body resembled an aged, rusted heavy machine. Although operable, each movement required great effort, wasting much time. Now, with a small achievement in archery and a remodeled body of ape arms and wasp waist, it was like replacing old parts of the machine with new ones. Hence, when the machine operated again, although still heavy, it became several times smoother. The fourth spear technique, complete. The fifth spear technique, complete. The sixth route, he practiced one after another. Without the breathing skill to mitigate side effects, there were several moments when Chun Sansi felt his lungs about to burst and his throat clotted with blood. Every time this happened, signaling that his body reached its limit, he would pour a ladle of cold water over himself, rest for a moment, then continue. Chun Sansi, holding the white waxwood pole, felt increasingly familiar with the Mei Hua iron spear, and his practicing movements got faster. The 10th route, the 11th route, continue. The universe turned, days and nights shifted. Gradually, soldiers reported to the military camp, making it bustling. Su Wenkai emerged from the tent, stretching towards the sky. The day's plan starts in the morning. He was looking through a scroll book and faintly heard the sound of shouting, that kind which was strained to the utmost. Su Wenkai found it noisy and followed the direction of the sound until he saw the scene. The rising sun spread its rosy light across the sky. On the martial arts arena there was a bare-chested youth. The youth wasn't very big, but his physique was exceptionally good, muscular yet streamlined, with a frame that was broad at the top and narrow at the bottom, looking from a distance like an inverted triangle. However, the youth was flushed all over, his eyes filled with blood, waving a Mei Hua iron spear as if he were a mad, starving wolf. Has Shanshir been practicing all night? Has he gone mad? Su Wenkai hurriedly went back to pull Zhu Tong awake. Since they were new and had no houses, they all slept in the dormitory tents. Old Zhu, you better go stop him, or there will be trouble. Zhu Tong arrived at the martial arts arena and couldn't help but shudder when he saw this scene. This wasn't trouble brewing. This was clearly, he was about to master it. He watched the youth's movements, which clearly showed the final route of the basic military spear technique. Outside the military camp, the clash of armor and disordered footsteps arose simultaneously. The soldiers who had left the previous day returned to camp with dark circles under their eyes. However, the few household commanders at the front were all glowing with vitality, full of energy. The new girls at the spring pavilion, they really are delightful, said one. Exactly, so tender they're almost dripping, another added. Fatty Wong, from now on we're kindred spirits. Please look out for us, another said. Ha, naturally of course, Fatty Wong agreed. Guys, better keep it low for a while. Unlike them, Commander Lu looked haggard as if he hadn't rested well. Lord Thousand Households was furious, demanding that we must find that barbarian assassin within 10 days. He's truly angered this time. Old Lu, you're just too serious. Householder Xiong said, that barbarian strength is no small matter. With the little silver we're paid, Why risk our lives? You're right, who knows why the 1,000 households is so urgent. It's very likely that the barbarian has already fled. Wang Ji stopped walking. What's that noise? At the edge of the martial arts arena, a dense crowd squeezed together, each stretching their necks to get a look inside. What's going on? I never see you this eager during regular training. Go away. Wang Ji kicked a few people away, making a path through the crowd, clearing a view for himself. He saw a red tassel flashing, and a Meihua iron spear constantly swirling in the hands of a young man, causing gusts of wind and scattering dust. It was the 36 basic movements of military soldiers' spear technique, a complete, smooth sequence of 36 movements. Bang! On the martial arts arena, the Meihua iron spear moved like lightning, piercing through a dummy, scattering straw everywhere, as if splashing the enemy's blood toward the sky. Chun Sansi had completely exhausted his last bit of chi power and could no longer support himself. He used the iron spear as support, planting it into the ground and kneeling on one knee, gasping large breaths of the bloody scent. It's done. Even without the breathing skill, he had managed to train in the basic spear technique. Regardless of whether he could become a selected point, at least his position as a military soldier was secure. Damn it! Commander Lu's eyes were wide as he tapped the shoulder of the person in front of him. Old Xiong. Wasn't he still practicing archery yesterday? Householder Xiong dropped his toothpick in shock. Yeah, right? I also remember that when we left, he was still practicing archery. That means he started practicing the spear last night, and by this morning he could do it smoothly, said Commander Lu. Commander Lu swallowed hard, somewhat in disbelief. One night, and he can perform the spear technique this smoothly? Learned in one night. What does this signify? Most importantly, this guy had no breathing skill. Without the breathing skill, not only would it greatly slow down the training progress, but the pain endured during the process is hardly less than the torture of prison. What kind of talent and determination must one possess to achieve such a feat? Moreover, how quickly could he master it if he had the breathing skill? Perhaps midnight or a few hours or even less. No way, this kid has to stay. No matter how he offended the Tianyuan Martial Arts Academy, I'll help him resolve it myself. Old Xiong, you have no shame. Commander Lu snapped back to reality and suddenly noticed that Householder Xiong had already eagerly moved forward. He rushed forward and tightly grabbed the other's arm. We had agreed that you guys can't compete with me for people. Bullshit. When did I ever say that? Householder Xiong struggled hard. Blockhead. Such a rare talent would be wasted in your hands. You're talking about me? If you weren't following in your father's footsteps, you wouldn't even make it to be a flag leader. Blockhead, wanna try? Let's go. The soldiers exchanged glances. They had heard that this boy had offended someone, and he should soon be unable to survive in the military camp. Yet, what they saw with their own eyes was two Lord Household commanders almost fighting over him. That's often how things are. If the young man merely had decent talent, they might have felt pity but wouldn't necessarily want to spend their connections to help. However, if they could see truly rare value in him, those connections wouldn't matter anymore. Just as Commander Lu and Householder Xiong were arguing fiercely, a sly voice chimed in. Little Stone, we had a deal that I'd teach you in 2 days. Come on. Today is the second day.